And you could be wearing these.
I used to struggle with shin guards sliding all game. These are a game changer. Put them on, you don't even notice them. They're comfortable, keep you going until finish.
It shows how fast you move on the pitch because it's stuck to the shin bone and does not slip and slide all around your shin.
No distractions, no readjusting, just focus on the match. What I like about these is you can wear them all day. Training, recovery, travel, they never lose shape. The material's soft and supportive. It's the perfect mix of comfort and performance. These guards are so lightweight, you forget they're even there.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood podcast. We've got a special edition. We've got a podcast with my friend John Barnes.
It's like full freedom to play a game without that
sections
clunky.
and three different parts. We're going to learn a little bit about John's life before he played football, and we're filming live in Chicago today. The second part is going to be coming from Houston, where we're going to talk about John's career at Liverpool, at Watford, and playing for England as well. And then the third part and the final part is going to be recorded in Los Angeles, which is going to be a phenomenal venue. And we're going to talk a little bit about what John's doing post-football, post his career as a coach and as a player, and what he's up to at the moment. So a big welcome to you, John, onto my podcast.
Sorry for being a bit sweaty, it's a bit hot.
It's been a really warm day today in Chicago. It's been about 30 degrees, and we actually got caught out sweating, running around as well. Now, John, we've obviously had you in our events over the past couple of days, and one of the interesting things that I discovered about you that I never knew was about your life in Jamaica and growing up in the background with your parents. So could you maybe start from the early days when you first started playing football as a junior? And I love the story about your dad and your dad's background.
Well, first of all, I mean, it's that at the outset, that is my life before football. There was no life before football. I started playing football when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
As all kids do.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not even thinking about being a professional footballer, but growing up in Jamaica, like growing up anywhere, be it Australia, be it America, be it anywhere, Africa, anywhere you are, people play football. And that's what I did. Particularly, this was, I was born in 1963. So throughout as far back as I can remember, that was what I did. My father was a colonel in the army, and he came to Sandhurst, which is the officer training, British Army officer training, because of course Jamaica was a colony, and anybody from even Australia, when it was a colony, Africa, any country which was a British colony, if you wanted to be an army officer in your own country, you had to come to Sandhurst, because obviously, Jamaica was a colony. So he came to Sandhurst with Andrew Parker Bowles, was his best friend. That's Camilla's husband. Ex-husband, should I say, because of course Camilla is now married to the king. So he was at my mum and dad's wedding. They were classmates at Sandhurst. But my father, being a British army officer, of course he's from Trinidad, but grew up in Jamaica as an army officer, discipline was the most important thing. And my father understood that there are going to be hardships, coming from one of the colonies into a camp where you have Winston Churchill and the whole quintessential English gentleman used to go, and you're coming from Jamaica, and you had probably, you had officers from Ghana and from all over. So he knew he had to be disciplined, he had to be determined, he had to be stoic. He also had to show them that he's equally as good as them, if not better. So he volunteered for everything. So my father then became heavyweight boxing champion in Sandhurst, never boxed before.
Wow.
Played rugby for Sandhurst, never played rugby before, but he then became the fullback. So whatever, and he just volunteered for everything. He actually played football himself for Jamaica, as much as he's an army officer, not professionally, but being an army officer, he had a lot of discipline. So he played football for Jamaica. He then played squash for Jamaica. When he got older, my sister swam for Jamaica. She played squash for Jamaica. My other sister played tennis for Jamaica. So I think you can figure out that I came from a very sporting background. So growing up in Jamaica, sport was everything, but not just sport. It's about the discipline and the attitude necessary for you to be successful in sport.
A lot of people are always wondering why a lot of the athletes who come from Jamaica are so successful, and the obvious one is yourself. And then moving a little bit later on, Usain Bolt. Do you think it's down to discipline?
Well, of course. Never mind myself, who's a footballer, and talk about Usain Bolt. But before him, there's Asafa Powell, Don Quarry, Merle Notti. The Jamaican sprinters are much more successful than any Jamaican footballer, myself included.
Yeah.
Because, I came from Jamaica, but was brought up in England since I was 13 years old. But Jamaica always had, from the 70s, a lot of good sprinters.
Yeah.
Now, they're no different to black Americans.
Yeah.
Genetically. They're no different to, and there are many more, millions more black Americans. So how can Jamaica, a country of 2.5 million people, produce so many good sprinters? And you can see them in the Olympics throughout, and the girls as well. Shelly Ann Fraser, They have so many good sprinters because they have the support.
Yeah.
When I was growing up in Jamaica, and this is not just something new. When I grew up in Jamaica, if you could sprint, you were running in the National Stadium in front of 40,000 people at the age of 9 and 10.
That's crazy.
Because they supported it. Because obviously you don't need anything to be able to run, so you can sprint. But it is well supported and it's well funded and they're well trained. So I always say, if Africa had that funding and that support, then of course you'd have lots of black sprinters from Africa. There are hundreds of millions. But of course they don't. Whereas in Jamaica, it is a culture. Yeah. And the culture starts from when you're young. And it's not just about your physical ability, it's about the training that you get. Because Jamaica is not a rich country, so they don't, give you lots of money. But the interesting thing about that is from the 70s, a lot of the Jamaican athletes used to come up to American university when they're 16, 17, 18, go to American universities. Yes, they're running for Jamaica, but they came to America to be trained and to be developed. Since Usain Bolt's time, probably about 15 years ago, they started to not come to America. They started to train in Jamaica because they understood that the qualities necessary, the training, attitudes, and the food and the nutrition, and the information, you don't have to come to America to get that. You can get that anywhere. And I suppose if you talk about what you're doing in Australia and here, you don't need to go to Europe initially if you're young to be able to develop in the same way. So that is why the Jamaican sprinters, ever since the 70s and 80s, were always able to compete.
Yeah. Just touching on a little bit more as well with the whole DNA and the makeup. One of the studies and researches I done at Loughborough University when I was at Leicester, it was really interesting that we actually discovered that 82% of white Europeans have fast twitch fibres as well. And it was really crazy to read that. And then I was thinking, well, if there's a lot of white European backgrounds have got it, why aren't they doing so well in athletics? But then you look at Jonathan Edwards, who was the triple jumper.
Yeah.
His records will never be beat, I don't think.
No, absolutely. It's a cultural thing, because of course you have to go through it. And interestingly, it is not just from a racial perspective, because if you look at black East Africans to black West Africans, Jamaicans, Americans are West Africans. In the slave trade, that's where they came from to go to America and Jamaica and the New World in the Caribbean. Yeah. And they're genetically, as much as they have the same color, they're different to the East Africans. Yeah. So if you look at the East Africans, they're better long-distance runners. Yeah. Ethiopians, Tanzanians, Kenyans, because as much as they're both black from a racial perspective, genetically, they're different. Yeah. So therefore, you don't get many black Ethiopian sprinters and black Kenyan sprinters. And of course, the black Americans are from West Africa, so therefore they're different body types. So genetics does play a big part in it. But once again, unless you're going to be able to put those genetics to good use in terms of not just the information in terms of how to train and what to eat, you also have to have an environment which encourages you to train, to do, because of course, from a genetics point of view, you don't have those genetics that you can just run. You have to then put the work in.
You've got to put the work in. And again, I think that all goes back to that discipline, doesn't it? And having that structure. So let's talk about, you said you were 3 years of age, you started kicking your first ball. Who was your first influence? Was it an uncle and aunt? Was it your dad? Was it mum? Was it cousins?
Absolutely my dad. Absolutely my father, because my father always, because he's very sporty. I mean, he's a colonel in the army, so first of all, discipline is important. Yeah. And secondly, from a sporting perspective, interestingly, I swam competitively from the age of 7. We used to swim in Miami. My sisters used to come and swim internationally, and I came to swim in Miami on the 10s when I was 9 years old from Jamaica in an international meet for my swim club, Marlin. But what used to happen when I got to, I've always played lots of sport, but we lived near the stadium pool in Jamaica. We used to walk to go to training every day, swimming practice every day. And every now and again I'll stop off to play football. And my dad said, if you're not going to take this seriously and not go to swimming practice every day, because you could always play football at other times, he said, stop swimming. So my dad always said, unless you're going to do it with authenticity in terms of putting the effort in, so he wanted me to go to training every day. And because every now and again I'd stop off and play football with my friends, he said, stop swimming. Yeah. So my dad always said, whatever you're going to do, you give it 100% commitment.
What was your stroke at swimming? Was the one breaststroke, and that was your preferred?
Yeah, breaststroke was what I did. My sister did IM, she did backstroke freestyle, butterfly, she did the individual medley, she was very good. And once again, because sport generally, or just think, not just sport, but in terms of education, you put your mind to it, you can do it. My sister then didn't take up squash till she was like 20, and then at 25, she was playing squash for Jamaica. So and she was a good squash player, but she worked really hard. And my dad always said, whatever you're going to do, you have to work really hard at it.
So it sounds like from a young age you were doing a lot of sports. And what age was it when you started to really specialise into football, where you probably got rid of the most of the sports? Was it more in the teenage years?
Well, I didn't really get rid of it because, of course, at school, I only went to a rugby school in England. I didn't play football at school. I played for a local football club, but I played rugby at school only. So then I played rugby for London schools. We had London school trials because I could run, so I'm playing rugby up until the age of 15. That's when I gave up. Because in Australia, you know, when you get to 15, 16, you get those big boys who want to really hurt you. I was a good runner, I could pass, I could move, but then all of a sudden in these trials, these boys were trying to kill me.
You get a few of those Kiwis coming after you.
I played for cricket. I played at Middlesex when I was, 13, 14. So as much as I played football, because I wasn't concentrating on being a professional footballer, that's my favourite sport, so I loved it. But I played cricket because I loved it. I played rugby, I played table tennis, I played squash, I played all sports. And I didn't know I was going to be a professional footballer until I was 16 and a half, and I became one at 17. So I wasn't then thinking at 13, 14, 15, I'm not going to concentrate on other sports. I played sports because I loved playing sports, but football was always the easier and the more accessible sport.
More natural, It's really, you know this as well, it's very political and topical on early specialisation and doing a mix. And what we discovered in the Premier League and the English FA when we worked on this EPPP project, and it was through Loughborough Uni, we actually discovered that doing a multiple set of sports at a young age, all the way through up until teenage years, actually built up what was called a foundational base. And the foundational base was building up agility, balance, coordination, and speed. And we actually discovered as well something that was really, really interesting. To be able to create fast twitch fibres, you need to build up a base of slow twitch fibres first. And then on top, your fast twitch fibres grows and develops. So it's really interesting to see that you, within that case, sort of like doing all those foundations, you were doing a lot of different sports, swimming, you said you were doing rugby, and football wasn't really specialised until you were 16.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that because, of course, you look at the correlation and the crossover between sports as much as you don't think. Because, for example, for goalkeepers, you look at footwork. Now, if you look at the way tennis players play tennis, they never cross their legs when they run across. They move sideways, as goalkeepers do. So you had boxes. So therefore, and as much as even when I did box as well, till they started to hit me too hard, I went to boxing training and I love boxing. I was a really good boxer, and I love training with my friends. I played at the YMCA, but every time there was a boxing event to box somebody you didn't know, I said, I'm not interested in that. But the footwork involved. So therefore, and this is not, now they're teaching you how to do it, and they're telling you that specifically this is what you do. But when you learn it by just doing it with a boxing coach, for example, I'm not thinking about my footwork for football, but it comes naturally. You don't cross your legs in football either. You move sideways. So all of these sports helps you in football because, of course, there are different dynamics, changing, angle, changing directions. I play a lot of squash where you got to come forward, you got to come back to the middle, you move sideways, you move in and out, you move. So of course, now in football, they teach you all of this specifically for football. But a lot of other sports gives you an idea for football in terms of the movements that you have to make, subconsciously, without even thinking about it.
Without even thinking about it. So we move on a little bit as you get more into closer to your teens. At what age was it when you first had that first experience of going overseas and leaving Jamaica? Was it 12, 11?
Well, I was going, as I said, we're going to Miami. Jamaica's an hour from Miami, so I know family and lots of Jamaicans go up there. So I was going to Miami, very regularly, two times a year, 3 times a year. We swam there, played football in Miami when I was younger, because in Miami they've got a big Hispanic population, so they always played football. So even when I was young, I would go up and play football. But of course, I then came to England when I was 12, 13 years old, permanently. To emigrate. But before then, America, we didn't go anywhere else really, because our cousins in Miami, so we didn't really go around. So mainly from a swimming perspective, my sister swam in Colombia, they swam all over. So yeah, we were always well-traveled, but mainly just to America.
And just to finish on this little mini segment before we go to an ad break, but Miami and the football's getting huge then, I'm probably going to talk about David Beckham. He's doing a great thing as well for the game over in the USA. Do you actually know David fairly well? Have you met him?
I don't know if I met him, but I don't know him that well, but I have met him. But, like anything else, football has been around for a long time.
A long time.
As I said, it's born in 63, by the early 70s I was coming to Miami. A friend of mine was coaching in Miami back then, and I used to come even when I was 11 and 12 years old, playing Miami Classics against the teams from Miami, from Jamaica. So, as much as we're thinking that this is new, this has been around for a long time, it's much more professional, it's much more organised, it's better funded. But even back then, we were coming up to Miami to play football matches back then in the early 70s.
Yeah, we had Pele, didn't we go there? Was it in the 70s?
Of course, Pele came, Franz Beckenbauer, Johan Cruyff, they all came.
So we've had big superstars.
But then what you didn't have is that many local players playing. They brought the superstars over, whereas now you have loads of local players. The one thing I would say about that, though, is, and which could really help America to grow even more, is if they, stop viewing it as a middle-class sport.
Yeah.
If you get the athletes who are playing American football, baseball, basketball, the real athletes, and they play soccer, because of course the best athletes in England and wherever, I'm not talking about specific for boxing or sprinting, but just athletics generally, everybody wants to play football, whereas here football seems to be either a middle-class sport or a sport for immigrants in terms of whether you're Hispanic or you're from, whereas the local American kids, it's only the middle-class college kids who play football. If that changed, you'll really see America growing.
Amazing. A big thank you, John. We're going to go to our first ad break, but when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of magic. We're going to leave Chicago and we're going to skip all the way across to Houston, and we'll come back with our second part where we're going to talk about John's life, signing and playing professional football at Watford, moving on to Liverpool, and a little bit about England. Watch this space, listen to the advertisements, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
And it won't be as sweaty in Houston, although it's hotter.
Thanks, John, and thanks everyone for listening in. We are super excited. The Professional Player Pathway book is finally here. It's just launched. You can now purchase this book. If you want to learn what it takes to make it as a professional football player, if you've got a son or daughter who's aged between 7 and 8 all the way up to 23, this has got the 7 pillars and the 7 secrets on how to make it in the Premier League, in La Liga, in the top leagues around Europe. The project that I worked on, the Premier League and the FA, spent £1.6 billion to date on this project. It produced players like Lauren James of Chelsea, Jude Bellingham of Real Madrid, Trent Alexander-Arnold of Liverpool, and many, many more. Guys, if you want to make it as a pro, the Professional Player Pathway book is the book for you. Hi everyone, we're back from our ad break. It's the second part of the podcast with John Barnes. Now, thank you to Modern Technology. We've just come all the way from Chicago. We're now magically in Houston. Welcome back, John.
Thank you very much. Equally as hot, but not as sweaty.
Now, we're going to speak to John about his illustrious Liverpool career and how he first heard about getting the opportunity to sign for Liverpool. But obviously, you spoke to us about your career at Watford and then going into Liverpool. So if you can explain a little bit about the background and the amount of time that you spent at Watford, and then obviously when that first opportunity come to come for Liverpool.
Well, I was at Watford for 6 years, and this wasn't the first opportunity I had to leave Watford because, of course, I'd been there for 6 years. I'd been playing for England for 3-4 years before I even went to Liverpool. The goal against Brazil was when I was 20 years old, and I had another 3 years at Watford. So in between then, I'm sure that opportunities, AC Milan may have been interested in other clubs, but I stayed at Watford for 6 years. And Graham Taylor's the one who actually said to me, you are going to go to Liverpool. Because he said, that's the right club for you. The time is now right for you to go. You've done your apprenticeship, if you like, because now what happens in football is that the young player plays well for 1 year at a decent club, and then he costs £80 million and goes to a club and he sees inconsistency because he's not shown he's at a level of consistency over a period of time, which will then warrant you coming to a big club to know that you're going to hit the ground running, you're going to do well, and you're going to be consistent. Peter Beardsley was at Newcastle for 6 years. John Aldridge was away at Oxford and Newport for 6, 7, 8 years before he even came to Liverpool. So back then, clubs really did their homework on you to know, yes, you're a good player, but can you prove year in, year out that you can do this? And that's when Graham Taylor actually came to me and he said, Liverpool have come in for you and you're going to go to Liverpool. They came in January 1987 because then you could have gone at any time. There's no transfer window. But he said that, okay, you're going to go at the end of the season. You're not going to go to Liverpool now because... and he's right, and I still believe it, that mid-season is not a time for you to go to a club because you have to bed in new culture, new system, new teammates. You've got to get used to the tactics. So it's always good to go at the start of the season where you can have a good pre-season, physically, mentally, getting used to the players, getting used to the system, the tactics. So I then went to Liverpool at the beginning of '87. And Peter Beardsley came at the same time as me. About a week later, he was the most expensive player. So it was a bit of a change for Liverpool because Rushian had gone to Juventus, Kenny had retired. So it was really, me and Peter and John Aldridge really were to replace those two.
To try and replace them. So you went to Liverpool in '87. And that first pre-season, what was it like when you first hit the training grounds with joining all the new Liverpool players? And was you nervous? Was you confident? Was there any players who really stood out to you?
Well, as I said, I've been playing football for 6 years. I've been playing for England for 3 years. I've been playing in the England squad with Liverpool players. So I wasn't obviously apprehensive, but I wasn't nervous because I knew my preparation was such for the last 6 years that I was able to play. I was able to perform, and I played against Liverpool many times. So while there's a bit of apprehension, there wasn't any nerves. And obviously I felt that these Liverpool, but I know the Liverpool players. And individually, Rush and Dalglish, but they weren't there anymore. But the Liverpool team were still the best team, but which was amazing to me, because if you look at them individually, apart from obviously Rush and Dalglish, the rest of them, the Ronnie Whelans and the Steve McMahons and the Stevie Nichols, Alan Hansen was special, but you know, Jim Beglin, it was like, well, they're not superstar players, how come they're the best team in Europe? And it really was the Liverpool way.
Yeah.
And then I got into learning the Liverpool way, which came from Bill Shankly through to Bob Page to Joe Fagan to Kenny, and just learning about the Liverpool way. So therefore, as much as I was a better or more even senior player than a lot of Liverpool players in terms of my experience and the fact that I'm playing for England, I had to learn from them the Liverpool way. And that's what Liverpool did. They looked at players who they thought could fit into the Liverpool way. I came from Watford, which is a long ball team. You know, so how can I play the way Liverpool played that from the back? But they saw something in me that I didn't even know I had in myself. Because that's what they do. They don't coach you, but they look at you and they watch you playing for your club and they say, you can fit into what we want without you even knowing it yourself. Because when you get to Liverpool, they don't coach you. You just have to absorb the Liverpool way by learning from what you see from the players who've been there before and done it.
I was born in 79, so around that 87, 88, I was like 9 and 10, and we used to spend a lot of time up at the stadium, down to Melwood, climbing that wall, getting past the barbed wire to watches. And then I remember like 10, 15 years later then becoming a coach myself, but thinking back that what we used to, the glimpses of what we used to see, it didn't look like we seen a lot of coaching, it looked like a lot of small-sided stuff going on.
That's what it was. 6v6, 7v7, 8v8, depending on how many people turned up. But you learned, because that's what football is. Apart from, you know, when you're shooting and crossing, or when you're defending and stopping crosses, you're playing in a middle third, whereby it's all about 8v8, keeping the ball, getting into certain positions to be able to deliver the final pass. And that's all we did. We did five-a-side, didn't do any coaching. Which is really, that's why I'm glad I didn't go to Liverpool at maybe 17, because at 17, 16, 17, you have to be coached.
Yeah.
Whereas Liverpool didn't bring in young players and put them in the team, because they're not going to coach them. They buy players early to mid 20s who had the experience, and they saw that you could fit into what they wanted, so they didn't coach us at all. So it was amazing to me how, coming from a team like Watford, from the first week in pre-season doing what I did, it was like I played for them all my life, and it was like I'd never played this type of football before. How am I doing it? But they would have known in me that I could actually do it, and I think that they look at the intelligence in terms of how you play for your club, to use your initiative to work things out yourself, because that was Liverpool's mantra: work it out yourself.
I remember growing up, and Dad, he was an armchair supporter. He drove wagons all around the country, delivering to like supermarkets, but he even knew it was the Liverpool way, pass and move, the Liverpool groove. That's like what we grew up with as fans, and it's exactly what you guys were doing, wasn't it?
Well, Ronnie Moran, that's all he said: pass and move, don't stand still, rotating in positions, you know. So there are times when, you know, I would go to left back, Stephen Nicholl would come over, and then I knew how to play left back until we could get back into position. So rather than passing and standing still, it wasn't just passing and moving, but moving into a different position, and everybody had to do it. So therefore the formation stayed the same, even if the personnel was different. You know, so the rotation, where Peter Beardsley would drop off into midfield, Seaman Mann might run, and Peter Beardsley would become that midfield player. So therefore you always had the shape, and maybe the personnel changes, but the shape to continue the move, either offensively or defensively, when all of a sudden Peter Beardsley is the deepest lying midfield player and he has to defend like Ronnie Whelan. But once again, this is something that you have to have the experience to know. You can't be a 16-year-old kid and understand that.
Yeah.
So that is why Liverpool didn't really have all of these youngsters coming through. They bought a lot of young players when they were 21, 22, and then they learned the Liverpool way, but they didn't have 16 and 17-year-old players going into the team.
It's really interesting, you said before as well about like not being coached. You shouldn't be coached at that top level, you just turn up and do your job. But it was one of the things that I wrote about in the book, in the Professional Player Pathways, that we discovered at academy level. Coaching's important for youngsters. You've got to coach them skills, technique, tactics, but we discovered with the English FA and the Premier that we're probably over-coaching them too much. And it was really interesting that we went down the route of 2 sessions a week where we weren't able to coach. We just put them on the pitch, 4v4s, 5v5, 6v6s, and just gave them a basic condition. And I think we've realised, over the past 20 years, that we probably were over-coaching them a little bit too much in England.
Yeah, well, they have to do both. Of course, they have to be coached at a young age, but they also have to be able to use their initiative to work certain things out, because everything that, from a coach's perspective, when you go out there, if it's not working, what I told you to do and what I told is going to happen as a coach, what you're going to do, you can't look to me and say, well, you said this wasn't going to happen. So Liverpool obviously took it to the nth degree, and maybe the English FA in the old days, you know, were the opposite. But I think the balance is very important, because, you know, as I said, when we played football, for example, and you would know as a coach, you'd have to put on, you'd have to then say to the players 2-touch for them to have 2-touch. At Liverpool, we never did.
No.
But we still had 2-touch. So I've been at clubs and even for England when you're having 80 sides and you're playing, then all of a sudden the coach will go 2 touch, so you have 2 touches because you're forced to. Then he goes right free and everybody starts to dribble. Yeah. In Liverpool that was never the case. They still play 2 touch because that's the way you play until you get into obviously each penalty box. So this is something that you actually learn as you get older and you have to experience and go through. And because it was the Liverpool way, Liverpool never had to say 2 touch, but they would I remember some new players coming and then all of a sudden Ronnie Moran would have a go, the players got having more than 2 touches. And they'd say, yeah, but you said it's free. And you're free, but if you know the Liverpool way, free means 2 touch. 2 touch, yeah. Until you don't have to do it anymore. Whereas it's the other way around. Yeah. Players will then take 2 touch when they have to, but when they don't have to, they dribble. Whereas in Liverpool, it was the other way around. We take 2 touch all the time, and when we don't have to, but then when we have to, that's when we dribble.
Now, obviously, you had an illustrious career with Liverpool. You won many, many trophies. You were there for 10 years. Is there one final, is there one league title win, is there something that really sticks out in your memories that you think that was the most enjoyable?
Well, I think 2 things. The biggest lesson I learned when we won the first league championship in my first year, when we beat QPR 1-0, and I came in and I expected a huge celebration, and Ronnie Moran had the winners' medals in a bag. He put them on the table, didn't make a song and dance about it. He just said pre-season training July the 5th. Didn't make a song and dance about it because, of course, we won the league, but what is success? Success is the repetition of success by doing it again. And how do you keep that hunger to do it again? Is when you've done it, forget about it. So obviously, that's easy philosophy to have when you're winning. What about when you're losing? And when we lost to Arsenal, last game of the season, came in, losers' medals in a bag, said pre-season training July the 5th. Because had we wallowed in self-pity and despair because we've lost the league in the last minute of the last game of the season, we'd never have raised ourselves to win it like we did the next year. So when you win or when you lose, you give 100% effort, commitment, determination, authenticity in your efforts. And if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. There are a lot of people who say, well, it doesn't matter if you win. Of course you want to win, but if you give 100% and you lose, there's nothing you can do about that. So I always learned that from the Rudyard Kipling spoke about triumph and disaster, a great poem talking about the way you treat those 2 imposters. You can't necessarily, you could play in a cup final and hit the post 20 times, play really win and lose, but you've given it all, so you can't do anything about that. So my whole 10-year period at Liverpool, from a league perspective, the good and the bad, is the most important thing for me. But the one moment I'd say is probably the FA Cup after Hillsborough, when we beat Everton, because it was fitting that it was a Merseyside Cup final, Liverpool versus Everton, because Evertonians would have lost loved ones in that as well, because, as you know, Liverpool is not a divided city geographically, religiously. Some people support Everton, some Liverpool neighbours, even brothers and sisters. So they would have been hard hit by Hillsborough as well. So it was fitting that it was a Liverpool-Everton Cup final. So those 2 games, well, the Cup final is probably the singular game. And the biggest lesson I learned was when we won the league for the first time and we lost the league against Arsenal.
That's brilliant. Now, obviously, you blessed to work with many, many coaches, and you were influenced by a lot of them that you worked with, but also, you've mentioned and spoke about you were influenced by coaches who were at the club before you. Was there one coach in particular, or one thing that was said to you in your career that really stood out and that really influenced you? Well,
first of all, I think that, when I came to Liverpool, and I've said it all along, I felt I played under Bill Shankly, because what Bill Shankly did, Bob Paisley continued, Joe Fagan continued, Kenny Dalglish continued, so Roy Evans. So it's just a continuation of Bill Shankly. Nothing was new. Nothing changed. I mean, when Graham Souness came, it kind of changed. Then football was changing. Then Houllier came and things changed. But up until that point, Liverpool was just Bill Shankly and what he did. And all the coaches were promoted from within, so therefore that continued. The lessons he learned, Ronnie Moran was probably, because he had a hard time explaining it, because his delivery of his explanations weren't great. So you have to understand Ronnie, Pugsy. Just to give an example of the lessons that he taught us. For example, Jim Beglin played left back, and he said to Jim, for corners against, as a fullback, you go on the post, defending. So the corner came in and there was a goal, and he said to Jim Beglin, where were you, son? He said, I was on the post. He said, what are you doing there? He said, you told me to go there. And he said to him, yeah, but if I told you to jump in a fire, would you do that? Now, everybody laughs and thinks it's a stupid thing to say, and I suppose if you just take it at face value, it is. But what he's saying to Jim is that I've given an instruction to be on the post, but while you're on the post, if you see danger somewhere and use your initiative to know that that's more dangerous, and you leave the post, although I've told you to be there, they love it when you do that. They love it when you do that, because so many players get away with just being given instructions and just following it to the letter of the law. Meaning if Jim was on the post and he knew 100% that they were going to score, but he's still going to stay on the post, and he stays on the post and they score, and the coach has a go at him, and Jim says, no, but you told me to go on the post, so you can't have a go at me. The Liverpool coaches wouldn't stand for that. They say, you use your initiative. So, these are the lessons that you learn at Liverpool. More than any other club, they allow you to use your initiative, which is why they look at you for the years and they say, have you got that initiative? Do you have that experience to do that? rather than us having to coach it into you. And there's so many good players who've come to Liverpool, and if you don't learn that Liverpool way, no matter how good you are, you won't make it.
Yeah. Now, one of the final ones I want to finish on before we go to our next ad break is, obviously, you know, Shankly instilled a lot into the club. We obviously have gone through a bit of a period before Jurgen Klopp joined us where we weren't so successful again. I feel like Klopp sort of taught us a little bit about how to win again and brought that winning mentality back. Do you think there's a lot of talk, and I see it from a fan's point of view, you see a lot of negative talk about Klopp's gone, it's the end of the world, it's going to be another 5 years before we win a trophy? Or do you think it's not going to be that bad, and do you think Klopp's installed some of the winning culture back into the club, and do you think Arnie will bounce off that?
Absolutely. I mean, after Bill Shankly left, Bob Paisley took over, and he was infinitely more successful than Bill Shankly. It was easier for Bob because Bill Shankly started it, and it's always easier to start a revolution than to continue it.
Yeah.
Because starting is always difficult, so I still put him ahead of Bob Paisley in that respect, although Bob Paisley's won more trophies, infinitely more than him. Jurgen started something again, but it's going to be different now, because obviously after Bill Shankly, everything continued the same. Promotion from within. It went to Bob Paisley, to Joe Fagan, to Kenny Dalglish, to the training methods, the staff, everything stayed the same. Things are going to change. Because Jurgen now, you know, the way that he had Liverpool in the last 9 years, if he was going to promote from within and it's going to be a student of Jurgen and things are going to be the same, the methods, then, you know, it will just continue. Whereas it's the unknown, because it's going to be new, because Arne Slot is different to Jurgen. He's going to bring a new system, a new philosophy to the team. We're not going to be playing as heavy metal football, as dynamic as Jurgen. We're going to be more considered. Extra passes in midfield, probably play a bit more on possession, a little bit more quality in our deliveries, rather than just, you know, getting forward, up and down. You could look at the nature of the midfield players; they're more technical. But the quality of the players, and more importantly, the character of the players, is good. Which means that, you know, you've seen it in the past when Fergie left, when Arsene Wenger left, when Mourinho left Chelsea, that all of a sudden the players then dropped a level, because the players responded to those managers, and a new manager coming in, they don't respond to, because they know if we lose, the fans are going to not boo us, they're going to boo the players, whereas the Liverpool players are good characters. Yeah. And Jurgen has already started singing out his name straight away, so I think that the characters that Liverpool have will be respectful enough to Arne to then go, yes, we love Jurgen, remember him, but whatever you want us to do, we're going to do. So I've seen those signs on pre-season, that they will give 100% effort to try and now make it the Arne Slot way.
Your opinion for the season ahead, do you think they've got enough to get that Champions League place again?
Oh, absolutely, to get the Champions League place. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's between, once again, the top three, Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool. I think Liverpool would be more consistent than we were last year. We had a lot of injuries and, you know, a few new players. So I think we'll be pushing, but I have no doubt we'll definitely be in the top four.
Amazing. Now, we're about to go to our next ad break, and through the magic of technology, we're going to magically fly all the way from Houston to LA. Once we pick up our final little section of this podcast, we're going to speak to John about post-playing, coaching, and then also what he's doing in television and currently what he's up to. Watch this ad break, and we'll be back with you very soon.
Would you like to make it as a professional footballer? My friend Ray Wood has written this amazing book, The Pro Player Pathway, that gives you the secret to becoming a professional.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the final segment of this podcast with John Barnes. Now, we've been in 2 cities, and through the magic of technology, we've just travelled from Houston all the way to Los Angeles. John, welcome back. Safe travels from Houston.
Sweaty again.
Sweaty again. The temperature in the US at the moment, it's summertime here. It's been really, really hot. Now, we've spoke a little bit about your career before you made it as a pro. We've spoken a little bit about Watford, Liverpool and England. We want to talk a little bit now for our listeners out there who know you and who don't know you. What happens once you finished up at Charlton, I believe it was, and then how you did you decide to do your coaching badges, and was that something that you really aspired to do?
Well, of course, straight after I left Charlton, I became a coach. I'd just done my B badge. But of course, Kenny then phoned me, Kenny Dalglish, and said, would I like to come as head coach of Celtic? So while I didn't finish all my badges, the opportunity came, so I jumped at it. Because, of course, I had been influenced by, first of all, Graham Taylor, in the way that he approached football in terms of his, and we spoke about it earlier, his ability to understand tactics, systems, player position, regardless of you as an individual. How do you interact with the team by understanding the direction that players have to go in a real coaching environment. Obviously from Liverpool, we didn't do any coaching, as you know, but so I kind of like married the both, because all my thoughts on football was understanding how you want your team to play and then getting players to fit into that system. Football at that time, this was 1999, was just about getting the best players. So when I went to Celtic and tried to implement a style and a system that's, and then get to the players to understand each position has a requirement in relation to the other positions, football back then was about, let's just get good players and go and play. So that didn't work out. Then I coached the Jamaica national team very successfully. We never lost one game. We had 13 games, won 11, drew 2. But politics in Caribbean football, as it was, meant that I didn't continue with that. But I've always loved coaching, and that's what I wanted to do. At the same time, I was also doing in the media. You know, I worked in Sky, I worked in ITV at the time in football. So I've been doing that a lot. And of course, in the last couple of years, I've been an ambassador for Liverpool. But before that, I was always doing a lot of work for Liverpool, not as a full-time ambassador, but now that's really what takes up most of my time, ambassadorial work for Liverpool.
When you said you'd done your B licence when you were at Charlton, but then obviously I take it you went on under your A licence eventually?
Well, no, I didn't, because by the time I was then coaching, and then I went to Celtic, then I went straight to Jamaica. So by the time that finished, I just went into the media, so I didn't continue in the coaching.
How did you find it, the transition from being one of the superstar players over that prior decade to all of a sudden then at the helm of like one of the biggest clubs? Was it an easy transition, or was it hard? Or?
Well, it was very hard because, of course, you know, first of all, I am not from Scotland, and of course the Celtic Rangers situation whereby they like their own, and of course Rangers were the better team at that particular time. They were spending lots of money and we weren't. So I actually had a fairly successful, I had quite a good win percentage at Celtic. My win percentage at Celtic was 65%. Steven Gerrard, who had a fantastic time at Rangers, his win percentage at Rangers was 63% over the 4 years. So once you have a perception as to what's failure and what's success, that didn't work out. But I didn't find the transition particularly hard because I've always thought about coaching and thought that way when I played football anyway, in terms of how the team performs. But unfortunately, when people have a misconception of you, then, you know, in many respects, you are beholden to other people rather than just yourself.
Now, obviously, we've got a lot of parents on our programmes. A lot of them in Australia and the USA are actual coaches and aspiring coaches. Was there a challenging moment that you can think back to when you was coaching, whether it be at Charlton or Celtic or Jamaica, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Well, challenging moments for me at Celtic, where you're playing with, or you're coaching and managing international players with big egos, is different to you're coaching an under-12 team in Australia. Yeah. Because I'm sure those under-12 kids will be much more receptive to their coaches than, you know, superstars at Celtic. So, of course, the challenge for me was the fact that I hadn't coached before, and I've just recently retired, and I'm at a huge club, and a lot of people felt, well, you shouldn't be here because you haven't been through the system, you haven't done any coaching before. So those were the challenges, the perception people had of me. And, of course, you see that now throughout Premier League football, because as I said, apart from Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, and now Mikel Arteta, every manager has a challenge because the players seem to be more powerful than the managers. Yeah. So until that situation is going to be reversed, whereby the managers are now given the respect by the fans and the players, which happens more in England than other countries, it's always going to be difficult for managers.
So then rolling on to punditry work, you said that obviously, I can remember, you know, you worked on Sky, you've worked on ITV. Was that really enjoyable for you, and was that something that you really embraced, or is it a really difficult role? What's it like being on the TV?
That's an easy role.
It's an easy role.
It's an easy role because all you have to do is talk about what you see, talk about football, and what you do as a pundit is you always, after the event, say what should have been done. Yeah. As a coach, you've got to say all of that before, because of course, as a pundit, you look at a game, he's in a bad position, it's a wrong goal, mistimed tackle, whatever, bad position. After, you can say that because you can see it. If you understand football, it's easy to do that. Yeah. Whereas from a coaching perspective, you have to do all of that before the game and let people know what they have to do. So I found punditry very easy, and I still do. But I would still love to coach because that's what we want to do. But punditry is a way of keeping involved in football. But no, it's not a difficult thing at all.
With the punditry, one of the questions I really want to ask you, and this is a personal one for me, are they telling you what you can and can't say? And also, the second end of that question as well, is it really tricky that, you know, you find yourself you can't be too biased to, like, say, Watford or Liverpool because they're your ex-clubs? Or do they tell you can't be too biased towards them? How does that work?
No, they don't tell you. You have to be who you are. And I think that if you're constructive in your criticism, as much as I'm an ambassador for Liverpool and Liverpool's my club, I will be honest about it. Yeah. But unfortunately, what happens a lot of pundits, they get carried away one way or the other. So I would never, ever go and criticize a player for being in a bad position or missing an open goal, because I've been there, I've missed an open goal. Yeah. So, of course, you can then say you should concentrate more, get your head over the ball. But you have pundits going, oh, you should never do that because it's a disgrace, because he's missed an open goal and that should never happen because you're a professional, you know. So therefore, and unfortunately, they're the pundits who actually make it, the ones who are overly critical. So I think you can be constructive in your criticism if you're honest. Yeah. And as I said, I've missed open goals. I know how easy it is to miss an open goal. So I would never ever go and say you should never miss an open goal.
Yeah. And going back to coaching, obviously you just touched on maybe the potential of going into coaching again. And are you doing anything more with your coaching badges or education and learning at the moment, or?
Well, I haven't got time. I've got 7 children. I'm walking around, I'm working, I'm doing all kinds. No, so at that moment in time, when I'm still doing what I'm doing, that has to take a back seat.
But coaching role potentially could still be on the cards in the future if the right opportunity comes.
If an opportunity comes, an opportunity doesn't come by very often.
Yeah.
And there are many reasons for that, which if I have an hour in the podcast, I can tell you. But of course, yes. So of course, I'm still on the lookout. But of course, they are few and far between.
So we're just talking about obviously going into coaching and that, and obviously you're still very relatively young. There's a lot of coaches, like a Carlo Ancelotti's getting closer to 80 now, and he's still going really, really well. Is that obviously something that you think maybe as your life maybe gets a bit quieter and as the kids get older, it could be something that you really pursue?
Well, of course, once again, it depends on the opportunity. But of course, Carlo Ancelotti may be getting older, but he has been in it for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be relatively new for me because I coached in 1999 and then coached Jamaica in 2007, Tranmere in 2009. So it's been 14, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Whereas Carlos continued throughout. So it's difficult for me now at my age. But of course, you can never say never.
Now, one of the big things to finish on before we finish the podcast, we always get our players in the room and parents as well to write down the one big scary goal for the next 5 to 10 years. Have you got a big scary goal that you'd like to achieve or do? Is it whether it be something to do with your family or something on a personal level with work or business? Is there anything that you've got planned for the future?
Well, at my age now, there are no scary goals ahead. The scary goal ahead is just to try and stay healthy.
John, a big thank you. It's been amazing. We're so blessed to have you with us on this tour in the USA and Canada. And I know not just Liverpool fans, but football fans around the world are going to cherish this podcast. And a big thank you for me and the guys at Euro Football Star.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood Podcast. We're excited to be back with another podcast. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we've had ex-famous football players, coaches, and also from time to time, we bring on players who are currently on our professional player pathway program. Now, we've got a player online with us this evening. I'm going to introduce you to a young gentleman who's a fantastic football player, has got a lot of potential to go really far with his career. We've got Lockie Olsen with us. How are you, Lockie?
Good, thanks, Ray. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, very good. So thank you for joining us. So we're bringing you onto the podcast because we've got some exciting news that we want to announce and share with the world, everyone who follows us on our socials, and also a little bit of an update on you and your program. So before we get into it, I think we'll start straight off the bat. When did you first join us on the program?
It was towards the end of last year, so around like October of 2023.
October 2023. Where was the event that you come in for the Pro Player Pathway? Can you remember where it was?
My dad went to it, I think it was in Sydney.
In Sydney, amazing. And you are currently based, where are you based at the moment? Where do you live?
So I'm on the Central Coast. It's kind of in between Sydney and Newcastle.
Sydney and Newcastle. So for all of our listeners who are aware of our program, the Pro Player Pathway, we run events globally all around the world, and we offer scholarships to players to come and join us to work on our full-time program, which has got 7 pillars attached to it. And then the idea is to try and get players opportunities overseas to the UK and to Europe. So you've been with us for just over 6 months, and there's 7 pillars to the program. Can you explain to the listeners watching and listening in, what's your favourite pillar of the programme and why is it your favourite pillar?
I would say the opportunity to trial overseas.
The trial's the big one.
Yeah, for sure. It's just an amazing opportunity. It's quite crazy to me how like something like that can happen just for anyone, really.
Yeah, it's one of the big things that we decided when we set up. We've seen there was a lot of problems, not just in Australia, but also in the USA and Canada, where there's a lot of trial opportunities getting put forward for players, and it costs a lot of money, but there's no preparation to prepare the players. And that's one of the big things that we spotted, that we could do a lot of the work with yourself and with the players and get you prepared, ready. So then when you go over for opportunities, you stand a way better chance of being successful. So obviously you had Dad who was part of getting you signed up to the programme, and it must have been a dream come true when you first heard about the programme, that there was this opportunity to not only work full-time with myself and with some of the professional coaches, but also to get that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to not only get a trial, but to be guaranteed a scholarship as well.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, the support that you guys give the players leading up to the trial is just super important. And I think it'll definitely aid my success in the future.
Will, most definitely. Now, Lockie, let's talk football. Who's your favourite football team?
Manchester United.
Oh, we won't hold that against you. That's all right. So, Manchester United are going really well in the summer. They've got quite a few signings already over the line. Is there anyone that you really particularly looking forward to watching in the new season?
I think the youngster Kobe Manu has come up through the academy. I think he's a very good player, yeah.
Yeah, he has a very good summer as well with England in the Euros as well, and nearly won the Euros with England. They just missed out on that final game against Spain. But yeah, I think he's going to be a pivotal player, I think, for Manchester United in the new season. So what age were you, Lockie, when you first started playing football? What's your first memory of playing football? Can you remember how old you was roughly?
Would have been 3 or 4 maybe years old, just in the backyard, kicking a ball around with my dad.
Just you and Dad having a kick, and that's how it normally starts, doesn't it? What age do you think you can remember when you're thinking, I'd actually really like to play professional football? Do you remember when you first maybe thought of that?
That's always been my dream to be a professional footballer, but I think around the under 11 or under 12 age group, I really started to desire that for myself when I'm older, and yeah.
Now, obviously, once you started to think like that when you were 10 and 11, obviously, before you got on this program, did you seem like it was a pretty hard task to achieve to become a professional player, or did you think it was going to be relatively easy? What was your thought before you come on the program?
So yeah, before I came on the program, it definitely looked like it was going to be a road of lots of hard work, and the chances just say it's not going to happen that often for a lot of young kids who are just working hard in their backyard and whatnot. So yeah, I was prepared to do whatever it takes, but I knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah, any road's hard. It doesn't matter what you're trying to achieve, but one of the things that we recognised as well, not just in Australia, but in places like the USA, Canada, the Middle East, is that there isn't that direct pathway for football. Like when you live in the UK or Europe, you can definitely see there's a pathway, there's definitely a route you can follow and to get into the system, but it is a lot harder. And that was one of the things that used to upset me living in Australia for 18 years on and off, was that there wasn't the real opportunity for you boys and girls in Australia to even understand how to make the first step to make it as a professional. Now, if we talk a little bit about re-roll on, how old are you now? You are
15, so I'm 16 in November.
So 16 in November. So rolling on from 10 and 11, 5 or 6 years later, you're now on the programme. You've been on the programme now. For those boys and girls and mums and dads who are listening to the podcast and don't know anything about our programme, one of the first touch points that we do with all the players is a match analysis. Now, I take it you've done your match analysis?
No, actually. We haven't been able to get footage, but I was actually going to get Mum to film my game this weekend. So
amazing. Well, that's exciting, because for those who are listening in, the beauty about getting the match analysis completed is that we draw out those objectives for you, and we can start to push it in that right direction. So that must be exciting, knowing that you are about to get your match analysis completed and you've got to get your video submitted. So is it going to be an up-and-coming game that you're going to get recorded in the next couple of weeks, is it?
It would definitely. I have one this Saturday where it's a home game, so my mum will be there for the whole match. And I have around just a few more games in my season. Since I play for my school, our season's a little shorter, but yeah, I'll definitely be able to film a few games, which is super exciting.
That's going to be good, and then we'll get you connected with one of our professional coaches and get that match analysis completed. That's one of the key areas that we need to get done. So once you've got your objectives, you can start working on them and preparing for your trial opportunity next January. Now, in relation to some of the other pillars, one of the other pillars is obviously the GPS tracker. Have you been wearing the tracker for training and games over the past couple of months?
Yeah. For I think since pre-season in January, I've been wearing it, and it's just so useful. I think it's essential for footballers because really you can track things like heart rate, how far you run in a game, how fast you run in a game. So it's definitely good for improvement in your game, and yeah.
That's amazing. It's another big key one that we introduced into Europe and into the Premier League probably about 15, 20 years ago when the first GPS trackers come around. And one of the big problems we had was, like with anything, it was very, very expensive to get the kit and equipment. But now with the prices coming down, it was an essential part to our program to get added in. And as you just alluded to, for all of our listeners listening in, the reason why we have the GPS tracker is not only does it record, as Lockie just mentioned, distance run, acceleration, deceleration, how many sprints you do in a session. It allows us to actually compare our players with players against who are playing in Europe and the UK, because we've got all the stats and data from those players across there, and it allows us to show you that where our players are maybe in Australia or the USA, wherever they're based, against the players in Europe, so we know where we need to bring it up. So you've been using that since January. That's amazing. And you're pretty much using it for as many sessions a week as you can.
Yeah.
What's one of the big things that you think you've learned from the GPS tracker? Is it taught you anything in particular?
Yes, actually, when the stats on the GPS tracker were like maybe better than in comparison to another session, I could definitely see that the session with the greatest stats was a better session, and I played better in that session. So, for example, distance ran in a session, since I'm a midfielder, that's maybe one of the most important ones in my game. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And have you noticed since January that you're progressively getting better with some of your stats and that? You're keeping an eye on like your sprints and your distance covered?
Yeah, it's been slow. For the first few months, it was kind of just the same. But then I did start to focus on improving those stats, and they're just getting better and better each week.
Now, before we talk about the trials and going to the UK and what you're looking forward to the most, one of the other pillars is our intolerance and DNA test. Have you had our test completed yet, or are you still waiting for that to be completed?
No, I've got the results back from the test, yeah.
Amazing. So just again, for our listeners listening in, one of the pillars out of the 7 pillars is our DNA and intolerance testing. And the reason why we use this is to try and reduce the amount of inflammation that goes on in players' bodies, and also to make sure that the digestive system is not spending too much time digesting food and drink that it doesn't want to digest because it's not tolerable for that particular body. So it's an individual test. So Lockie, to walk through for no one who's ever seen one of these tests, what did you have to do to get your test results? How was it tested?
So first I had to snip off a few inches of my hair, and then I'd put it in a Ziploc bag, and I would mail it over to an intolerance testing company in Queensland or something, and they'd do the test and they'd just send me the results back, and yeah.
Amazing. So how long did that take from when you cut your hair to getting your results back? Was it a few months or a few weeks, or?
It was around 4 or 5 weeks before I got the results back.
That's not too long. And obviously when you got the results back, were you excited to see what you could and couldn't eat? And what was the anticipation like when you got the results back?
Yeah, I definitely thought it'd be interesting, and I was actually super surprised with some of the foods that I used to eat daily. Turns out they were not good for me at all. And yeah, I've started eating substitute foods instead of those each day. So yeah.
Amazing. So for everyone again listening in, with the DNA and intolerance test, it flags a report back to all the players and individual reports based off the DNA sample from the hair. And in black is everything that they can eat and drink, and then it flags up any items in red. And the advice from that test result is to give that particular type of food or drink a bit of a rest for 6 months. What were some of the things in there that were flagged up against you that you normally would eat, but it told you that didn't want you to eat?
Yeah, so there was things like cow's milk, chocolate. There was some types of pasta that I couldn't eat, and they were the main ones. Yeah.
Is there anything in particular on there that really upset you, that you were like, damn, I can't believe I've got to have a break from that? Was there anything that you really miss?
It's definitely the chocolate and milk, definitely.
I was the same when I got my test done. I don't know if you remember from the presentation, but I think it was Cadbury's, chocolate, milk, cheese, bread. It was all completely wiped off my schedule as well. Now, I know from my personal point of view, when I got my test done, because when we first considered to bring this on board for the players, I wanted to test it to see how good it was and if it made a difference. And I'll be honest, since I've started following my results, like things I'm not allowed to eat is chocolate, eggs, cheese, bacon. I've removed all of these items from my day-to-day life 99% of the time. And I've noticed like not only like weight loss, and it wasn't done for weight loss, it was done just to give it a try, but weight loss, skin, nails are growing really long all the time. Have you noticed anything since you made the changes that was for the benefit?
Yeah, so before I got the test done, I had like some like brain fog, you could say. And, 3 months later or 4 or 5 months later, it's all gone now. And yeah, I think super clear. And that would definitely help on the football pitch. So
yeah, it was a big one when we first discovered it, and they started introducing these tests in the Premier League. And with some of the top teams around Europe, was that they found it got rid of headaches, migraines, brain fog, congestion in the throat, because there's a lot of congestion and phlegm that gets built up from particular foods like milk and dairy products particularly. But what was really interesting as well is that about 70% of our players actually flag up for chicken as well. So they've got to take chicken out the diet. Is chicken okay on your foods or?
Yeah, chicken was fine. There were no meats that were bad for me. It was mainly just like dairy, and yeah, it was mainly dairy, to be honest.
That's amazing. So that's another big one, I suppose, for you in your journey, that maybe this time 9 months ago, you didn't have the GPS tracker, you didn't have your objectives, which you're going to do for your match analysis, but also you wasn't even aware that like this was causing a bit of a brain fog in regards to your nutrition. So you must feel like in a better position now that it is possible to make it and play professional football. Now you are actually training daily like a professional football player.
Yeah, it's just totally different. I would never have expected to feel like how I'm feeling right now, like 9-10 months ago. It's just great, really.
I'm super excited for you to get your match analysis done, so we're really looking forward to see that happen in the next couple of weeks. And we'll get you linked up with one of our coaches. So again, for mums and dads and players listening into the podcast, one of the pillars of the program, we actually get a match analysis completed. It goes off to Portugal. We get our top analysts in Portugal to analyse the game. And these analysts actually do match analysis for clubs like Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Real Madrid, all the big clubs in Europe. We get an individual match analysis completed for our players. It then gets sent back to us. We then over-analyse the top of it with one of our professional coaches who's based in the UK. So we've got coaches based at a lot of the big clubs in Europe and the UK. They'll then connect with Lockie on a Zoom call. They'll spend about an hour with Locke going through his match analysis, going through his match objectives. And those match objectives then get put into his football plan, which is our web-based portal. And then once he's got his objectives in there, he can then start working to better himself as a player. So it's going to be super exciting to get that done. Now, before we finish off, Lockie, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes to go, if you're okay just to hang with us for a few more minutes. Now, we're talking about trials. You're going to the UK in January. What's the one thing that you're really looking forward to about this opportunity through the programme?
I think it's just a different environment to what I've ever been in. So I'm excited to be exposed to that, and I'll be able to learn off that and improve from, that new environment I've been put in. I also am excited to showcase my talent to some really experienced coaches over there in the UK, and yep, that's it.
That's amazing. So again, for everyone who's listening, we set up these trial opportunities. We go to the UK in January every year. We also go to Spain, to Barcelona, and to Paris Saint-Germain in France every June, July. Part of that is that we open up opportunities at private academies, sometimes professional clubs, and then it's all about getting the players to be able to showcase themselves in front of these high-level coaches. But also, one of the big things that Lockie's just alluded to is actually pitting yourself against the players in Europe and the UK, pitting yourself against the best players on the planet and the ones who are currently in the system. Now, we've been quite successful over the years. We've had in excess of 20 players who've been offered some form of scholarship to stay and live in the UK and in Europe and to play and train there full time. So obviously there's going to be an opportunity for every player who goes on the trial Lockie to be offered some type of scholarship to stay and play football in the UK and Europe. When you get your opportunity, do you think that's something that you might consider when maybe you're 16 or 17 or 18, is something that you think you might take on, or do you think it's a bit too scary to make that jump too early? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm definitely prepared to, sacrifice a comfortable life just for that opportunity to play football in the UK. So really depends on some other things, but I think, yeah, it's definitely an option to take that scholarship and play over there.
That's amazing. Now, I know there's a lot of things that you've got to think about, and mums and dads do as well, everyone who's listening in. Obviously, where they're going to be based, what club or academy they sign for, but also the big thing that's really important to us, and before we introduce this as a pillar to the programme, is also having that education support for the players as well. So part of the scholarship opportunities for the players is that we're able to offer education with this as well. So as an example, if you were to sign for, let's say it was Manchester United, then we need to make sure that you've got your school attached to that as well, because it's so important that you've got a plan B and a plan C in the event your football doesn't turn out the way you would like it to over the next couple of years. So does that excite you as well, knowing that not only are you going to also get the opportunity to maybe play and train full-time in the UK, but you could also do some schooling, some coaching badges, and you'll have a multitude of options within the game of football by the end of the 2-year scholarship?
Yeah, it makes me feel really secure. And I think, feeling secure is definitely a key to also performing in those trials. I know if I don't perform well, then I still have some form of backup that I can lean on.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. Now, finally, to finish off, what's your big dream, Lockie? So if you could have anything you wanted within your football dream and vision, who would you be playing for? What position would you be playing? Would it be Spain? Would it be England? Tell everyone.
So my dream, in the best case scenario, I would be playing as a 10, so as an attacking midfielder I'd say as an attacking midfielder for Manchester United. I'd have a long career over there, and then, after my career's finished, I would, pick up a job in some type of sports science, I think. That really interests me. And,
that was the final question I was going to finish off. So when your football career is over, I was going to ask you, is it physio, is it sports science, is it coaching, is it management? So you'd like to maybe be involved in the sports science area of football?
Yeah, so after, if I finish playing, I would definitely like to stay in the scene of football. Yeah, it'd be great.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Well, Lockie, a big thank you for joining me and everyone who watches and listens in to the Ravenswood podcast. We are super excited to get your match analysis done. We're super excited to see how you're going to progress in the next 6 months, and we're finally super excited to give you an opportunity to go to England. Now, just to finish off, for any boys and girls out there who are listening in or watching on YouTube and are interested in joining the professional player pathway, would you recommend the programme to anyone who's keen to make it as a football player?
Yeah, if it's your dream, if it's really what you want to do, definitely take it, because it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's a big thank you from me and Lockie from the Ravenswood podcast, and we look forward to joining you and seeing you and listening to you on our next episode at the Ravenswood podcast. A big thank you from me and Lockie Olsen, and we wish Lockie all the best of luck for the future with his football. Thanks very much, Lockie, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood podcast. We are super excited to do another episode. Now I'm with my very good friend, Mr. Kai Henning. How are you, Kai?
I'm very good, Ray. How are you?
Very good. Now we'll explain to all our listeners, anyone who's listening in and anyone who's watching on YouTube, a little bit of a backstory. So we've been involved with you and your football, I think it's for 3 or 4 years. Yes. And when you first come to us, how did you first meet with me and how did you first meet with Euro Football Star?
So we first met at some trials. You did some training.
Objective testing?
Yes. Yeah. And yeah.
And it went from there, didn't it?
Yeah.
Now we'll get straight into it, because I know anyone who's watching this on YouTube, and if you're not watching it on YouTube, you might want to start maybe watching some of our podcast episodes, because you'll actually see that Kai Henning's wearing a beautiful jacket from Steven Gerrard's Academy in Liverpool in England. So you've been at Steven Gerrard's Academy for how long now?
2 years now.
2 years. And you were just telling me you've got some good news that you've got extended by another year.
Yes, I'm staying there another year. They've asked me to come back for another year. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, we'll go all the way back to the start of the journey, because when we got you through our objective testing, it was just on the cusp of coming out of COVID, and also it was when we were just putting our professional player pathway programme together, where we wanted to start to open up opportunities for boys and girls like yourself who wanted to play professional football but didn't know how to do it, or even how to maybe even fix your game to be good enough to go over. So we first done objective testing with you, and I remember when we seen you in the testing, and we were very impressed with the results. And I remember a conversation with Mum, and your mum was saying that, yeah, you definitely love an opportunity to go overseas. And we had a look at one of your games, and I'll never forget it. And you were playing at the time for, I believe it was Redlands United.
Redlands United, yes.
Yeah. And I'd worked previously for a little bit of time with Redlands as well, so I know the area and the club really well. And there's a lot of great players down there. One of the big things, do you remember the one thing that we corrected in your game that really helped you with your wide play?
No, but can I have a guess? I'd say stretching the pitch, maybe.
Yeah, stretching the pitch and making it big and wide. And I never forget having a conversation, I think it was with your dad, and explaining that sometimes it's just 1 or 2 really subtle changes to someone's game can be the difference, with all due respect, in playing an NPL in Australia, or maybe going on and playing at a professional academy or a pro club in Europe or the UK. And I never forget, about 4 weeks after we made the change with your game, your dad sent me a video of you where you stretched the pitch big, you took your first touch out in front of you, you attacked the byline, you crossed the ball back to zone 14,
Yes.
and then you set up the goal.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget like the smile on my face when your dad shared that video with me, because it was like they're actually listening, and he's actually listened to the one little bit of information I give him. And I knew from that moment, one of the big things people always say to me, Ray, how do you make it to be a professional football player? I think one of the biggest things is actually listening, because I'm a big believer in God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and we should listen more. And I think you listened, and you're so coachable, and you took that point on, and it felt like within a blink of an eye, all of a sudden, you were in Liverpool and you were at a professional academy playing football.
Yeah.
Did it feel that quick for you as well? So when you were at Redlands, and we then took you on a trip to the UK, that was your first experience in England. And just remind me of the trip and the tour. Where were some of the things that we took you to and the places we visited? And
So we went around about 11th of September 2 years ago. We went over to the UK. We went around towards Bolton Wanderers, their academy. We went to Stephen Gerrard Academy. We went to Tranmere Rovers Academy. We went down to watch England versus Germany in Wembley in London, which was an amazing opportunity. And yeah.
it was good. It was good. So one of the big things that we do for our listeners listening in, we do sort of what we call just our normal tours, where it's just a bit of a touch and a feel and a look just to see what England's like and what Europe's like. When you actually had that first experience and you got to go to England and you got to see England play Germany at Wembley, what was that like?
Oh, the level's just different. The atmosphere was amazing. It's just a wonderful experience.
It is, the atmosphere is completely, it's unparalleled. The only way I can explain it, I think for any of our listeners and followers who live in Australia, if you've ever been to like a State of Origin game, it's like that, but times 5 still. It's still another level again. And I remember that England-Germany game really well. I think it was a 3-3.
Yes. Kai Havertz scored 2,
Yeah, in the last like 5 minutes or something. And we were predicting it, weren't we? We were having a go at England's defence and the shape, and it was like, I think they were 3-1 up, and you could sense Germany we're gonna come back into the game. So just a little bit of a background on you and mum and dad. So there's a bit of a mix.
Yes.
So where were you born?
I was born in South Africa, in Durban, South Africa.
And so you got a South African passport?
Yeah, actually, I think I've just dropped it now.
You just dropped it?
For Australian. I've done my
Australia.
Australian citizenship not long ago.
And then you've been in Australia prior to being born in Africa for how long was it?
So I was in South Africa from born all the way to 12. Yeah. And then I moved from South Africa to Melbourne for 2 years. Yeah. And then from Melbourne to Brisbane for 3 years.
And then dad's from South Africa?
Yes, dad's family's from South Africa.
Yeah, and mum's English?
Mum's British, yes.
Yeah, British. So that means you got access to British passports as
I
well?
do, yes.
So that obviously helps you a little bit with living and staying in the UK. And that's one of the big things that we get is love to trial in the UK or Europe, but we don't think we can because of the passport situation. And that's one of the big things, like with our partners that we work with, like Stephen Gerrard's Academy, it doesn't matter if you don't have a British passport, because through the education route, we can get visas for players to stay and live for up to 2 years. And obviously, you being at Stephen Gerrard's Academy, you'll obviously have seen a lot of international students who don't have British passports.
Yes.
And are able to play and train and study and give it a good go. So we'll move forward to your opportunity. So you went on the tour with us for a couple of weeks. We always identify players when we go on the tours if we believe they've got a chance to make it and if they show that attitude and that coachability, and you definitely did. And we were super excited. We put you in front of Stephen Gerrard's Academy, Tranmere Rovers. A couple of opportunities come up, and then at the end of, I think it was even before the end of the trip, I think you received the offer, didn't you?
Yeah.
To sign with Stephen Gerrard's Academy. So obviously, I remember them conversations, having mum and dad on the phone to me, and I was in the Bolton Wanderers stadium, and mum was all at a fluster. And I said, I told you, I promise you we were going to steal him on you. We were going to take him to the UK. So what was the feeling like when you found out that Stephen Gerrard's Academy wanted you to sign for them?
Oh, it was an amazing feeling. It's almost like a dream come true. It's like one step closer to becoming a professional footballer. It's an amazing feeling.
And that's one of the things that we say, especially with the boys as well, in the boys game. Like, we think the earlier players go across the better because, I mean, you're going to allude to in a minute, it's like just for our listeners listening, can you explain what the levels are like when we just talk about even like the players that you're playing and training against compared to what you can experience maybe in South Africa or even in Australia as well?
So in the academy, it's good because all the boys are from different parts of the country or different parts of the world, so they all have a different play style, which is good, and they all come together to adapt to how obviously the Stephen Gerrard Academy wants to play, and the teams we play against are a very good level. They look like they've been together for 2 or 3 years, so they're very good. Yeah.
And the quality is really high. I mean, it's not only the international players, but you get a lot of the local boys from Liverpool, where I grew up and I'm from, and you're probably privy to it now. You've been there for a long time. Some of those boys are tough, but also the good players as well.
Yeah. So some of those boys are obviously were at Liverpool's academy or City's academy a while back, but they're very good. Yeah.
So you got your opportunity to move to SGA, and in your first 12 months, you stay at the accommodation at Stephen Gerrard's Academy, and you get fed there and get watered there. You doing schooling as well?
I did my BTEC in sports management. I've just finished it now, and I've done all GCSEs for English and maths.
Amazing. That is fantastic. So we'll talk about the accommodation side of things and the food. Now, one of the big things is when I went around looking at all the different clubs that we were trying to partner with and the academies, one of the things I used to always look at was, would I send one of my daughters here? And if I would, then obviously that meant we would work with them. Just from when I first went into Penny Lane at SGA, but then also like hearing things like the chef at SGA was an ex-chef for Everton Football Club, and seeing the quality of the food. Can you just explain again to our listeners, and for any players and mums and dads who are maybe keen to go down this route, like what was your experience and what's it been like with the accommodation and the food?
Yeah, so I think food is very important if you want to become a professional footballer. You need to be able to eat right. You need to be able you need to see what you can't eat and what you can eat. And lucky enough, in the Stephen Gerrard Academy, we have a very good chef. Her name's Paula. She was from Everton, I think. And yeah, she cooks some amazing food. She knows exactly what you need and what you can't have. And yeah, it's very good.
That's good. And you find you get enough food? Because I know like a lot of players I know, like when I was working at, say, like Leicester City, the players, the amount of food they would eat because of the amount of calories you boys are burning, because of the amount you're training, but plenty of good quality food for you to get through. So move on to the studies part, because again, this will be more so, I think, for a lot of the parents listening in, who are like, I'd really love to open up this opportunity for my son or daughter, but education's paramount, because in the event football doesn't work out, they need their education. And one of the big things that I always say to the parents is if football doesn't work out in 2 or 3 years' time, it might still work out in another way. Football can work out like my route, could be coaching, it could be being sports science, it could be being physio. So we touched on it a little bit before, but just explain a little bit of like what are the studies that you've done and what's the aim in doing them studies in the event your football doesn't work out.
So I did BTEC in sports management. I did that for 2 years or 1.5 years with the academy, and I obviously also did my GCSEs in English and maths as well. And I did it because that if I don't end up making it in football, I do have something to fall back on. And yeah, and I've learnt a lot, and it's helped me. Yeah.
When you done the sports management course, that must have been so much more motivating. The fact that you're doing the sports management course, you're in Liverpool, you're training and playing like a professional. It must have just made you really engage more with the course.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Because I've done it in the past, and I remember when I was younger and I'd done a course at college, and I wasn't really super motivated because I didn't really know why I was doing it and what was the point in it. And it was only many years later when I'd done another course and I was working at a pro club, and I was doing I think it was my UEFA B licence with, actually it was based at Bolton Wanderers ironically, and I was working for Leicester City at the time. And I noticed the difference then. I was super motivated to do the course because I knew the reason why I was doing it. So after you've done your sports management course now and you've done all that learning, what's your thought process? Was there anything in particular that you really liked on that side that you think, do you know what, once my football career is over, whether it's when I'm 22 or 42, is there anything that really took your eye or your fancy?
No, not really. It was just obviously the schooling's good, yeah. And obviously that if worse comes to worse, I can go down the uni path. They have enough credits to go to uni because of the BTEC sports management. But yeah.
Do you think, it's funny, I had a podcast the other day, and you're not probably thinking about not playing at the moment, but when maybe you do not play, do you ever think, I'd love to be a coach, or I'd like to be a physio, or what is it you'd like to do?
I would like to do one-on-one coaching.
One-on-one
more
coaching.
Technical side of football.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't mind doing the team coaching as well, but I'd prefer to do more technical coaching.
It's interesting you say that. There's a really big, it's not even like, I wouldn't even say it's a trend, but it's a big thing that's coming around now, especially at the Premier League and La Liga level. There's a lot of specialised coaches going into clubs, like working on throw-ins, working on corner kicks. We started to look at it in around about 2012, 2013, and we started to do positional specific training, where we'd work with a group of maybe 3 or 4 players who would say, right, I'm going to work with all the wide players today. The other coach would work with the defenders, and then we'd bring them together towards the end. But you're talking about even drilling down further again, that like one-to-one stuff, like we've actually worked together in one-to-one sessions in the past. And this is the whole reason why our professional player pathway program is so successful. You haven't really seen too much of it because you've been living the dream in the UK. But over the past 3 years, we've developed this program, which has got 7 pillars to the program. One of the pillars is GPS tracker, so all the players who are on our program wear the tracker. One's nutrition. They get a DNA test done, so they give a hair sample. We do a match analysis. The match analysis gets done by coaches in the UK. We draw out objectives, so it's really drilling down to that personal level. When we talk about that one-to-one and personal stuff, what's the difference from your experience playing at, say, Redlands United in Australia compared to being at SGA in regards to the personal and that real one-to-one
the more technical side?
Yeah, the more technical side.
In Steven Gerrard Academy, obviously, the coaches are ex-pros, some of them, yeah. And they know what the level is, so they're very good with their technical side. They're sometimes strict. Obviously, you need that bit of strictness. And yeah, they're very good on the technical side of football, which is good. And for Redlands, don't really know about that one.
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's just, I love it. Like, I mean, I'm a big fan of local football here, but also, like, I always say to boys and girls and mums and dads, if you really aspire to make it at a high level, there's going to come a point where you've got to go overseas, you've got to go to Europe.
You've got to experience it.
Just to be in that environment, to be around the better players, to be with the coaches who, a lot of the time, you said that are ex-pros who've been there and done it and got the T-shirt, but also just even the level of coaching. Like, we've spoken about it in the past, like, it's took me like nearly 11 years to go through all my coaching badges with UEFA. We're just going to go to our first ad break, and when we come back, we're going to be carrying on with Kai Henning and his journey into Liverpool and the Steven Gerrard Academy.
Hey everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and it'll give you your results: physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024 and also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up. You get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback, and maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood back for the second part. Now, we've been chatting with Kai Henning. Kai's been working with myself and Euro Football Star for probably coming up to 4 years now. He originally went on trials with us. We've done some training with him. We got him opportunities into the UK and Europe, and he signed a contract with probably one of the biggest academies in the UK, Steven Gerrard's Academy. Now, what I want to talk to you about, because it's quite funny, especially in Australia, we get a lot of mud that gets thrown on the wall saying, oh, private academies are rubbish in the UK, and it's just a big money scam thing. But what really shocked me was about 3-4 years ago when I first went back to the UK, and I actually discovered that academies like Steven Gerrard actually compete in the National Youth League. And I'm like, what? Like, they play in the National Youth League? This is bizarre. How can they play in the National Youth League? Because surely that's only for the professional clubs. So that was a big game changer for me, because I'll be honest, I was always of that thinking as well, that going down the route of private academies, it's just a big money thing. And then I actually discovered like what Stephen Gerrard Academy were doing. So can you just talk to our listeners who are listening in a little bit about the National Youth League and some of the teams that you come up against and that you have come up against?
So yeah, the National Youth League is a very good league. We come up against teams like Bolton Wanderers. We come up against like teams of Tranmere Rovers, Leeds. We play in the 23s. We play against Chesterfield. We play a bunch of teams, which is good.
So that for me, when I first seen and heard that, I was like, wow, this changes the whole system for me, because it's a great opportunity for players who are good enough from maybe an Australian or an American or a Middle East standard, but when it comes to the UK, we know if we can drop players like you into that environment, you're going to just get better and better. And if you don't, you're going to sink. But as long as you're applying yourself and you're putting the work and effort in. But then also, for me, it was a game changer as well, as the fact that up until the age of under 23s, Stephen Gerrard's Academy and some of these private academies are part of the National Youth League. It gives you an opportunity to put yourself in the shop window against the big clubs as well. Like you said it there, you've played against Leeds United. Now, I obviously keep a close eye on you and a few of the players who we've placed over there. And I've even seen you like on days where like you've gone down to Liverpool and trained at Liverpool. I mean, can you talk about some of them? What's some of the best experience you've had, like with SGA, like training at other venues and clubs, and what's some of the things you've seen?
So we've been to the Liverpool Academy. We've had Adrian, which is I think the third keeper for Liverpool. He's gone and done a training session, and we've gone over to help out and just to be around the Liverpool Academy and stuff, which was good. And
was that the academy at Kirkby where the first team trained?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not on the first team ground. It was obviously one of the pitches on the side, but yeah. And we've also got the opportunity to play at Chesterfield Stadium for the 23s, which was another amazing opportunity.
Yeah. That's so good. And that's one of the things. I think once you're there, you're in the environment, you can see the levels. All of a sudden, you can touch places like Liverpool Football Club, Manchester City. Now, in the past 12 months, we have placed a player at Liverpool Football Club as well who's gone through our programme. So it's one of the big things that we say is that, yeah, maybe your level is good enough to maybe play in a divisional team at Stephen Gerrard's Academy, or maybe your level's good enough to play in the top team with the under-23s, or maybe you're good enough to maybe go straight in and sign for a pro club. So talk to me and the listeners listening about when you first went into SGA. I take it you didn't go straight into the 23s team?
No, so when I first arrived there, obviously I played with obviously the boys my age, and we had the 21s and the 23s at that stage, but it took me a while to grow through the system and develop myself to get to starting for the 21s and then making every team and starting for the 23s.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're actually now in the 23 squad. That's phenomenal. And I remember when I first went down and looked at the 23 squad a couple of years ago, and one of the parents on the tour with us commented on the level. And I said, what you've got to understand is some of these boys, and you've touched on it, have been released by Everton, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United. These boys have been in the system for 10 years, playing and training at the highest level. But what I allude to is that when we get an opportunity for a player and we say, look, we've got an opportunity for you to go to SGA, it might cost you £20,000 a year for the whole year with accommodation, food and your football, but you're in the most unique opportunity ever, because not only are you going to be coached by some of the best coaches in the UK, but also you actually don't recognise that you're going to be getting coached by the players around you, because they're going to bring your levels up that high because they're of such a level. If you just sit in that environment for 2 years and work hard and rinse and repeat, you're only going to become a better football player. And you're a testament to that.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think you was in that third or fourth team in SGA. And I remember speaking to the guys at SGA and they were so happy with you, your attitude off the park, your attitude on the park. And so you've been involved in that 23 squad now. How long have you been involved with them for?
About a year now.
About a year. So when you're playing in them 23s games and the level and the quality, how would you compare, if you were to take that under 23s team from SGA and you were to bring them and put them in the MPL here, where would you compare them?
I'm not 100% sure because obviously a lot has changed since I was last year. The leagues are different now, but yeah, I'd say it's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really up there. So in regards to you're going to head back from you're in Brisbane now for the next couple of weeks, just visiting family and friends, and you were just saying that you're helping out with Ormiston, is it?
Ormiston College.
Amazing, yeah, with their Opens team, is it?
Their first team.
First team. Are you able to train in and stuff with them and keep your
just
fitness up?
Training, yeah, helping them, teaching them bits and bobs that I know that I've learnt over being there, and yeah, just helping out.
You must get a few of the boys chatting to you, asking you about like how they could maybe make it a way across and stuff and that. This must be really funny for you to go from being in that environment where you was that player many years ago, and now all of a sudden you're the boy coming back from Liverpool just on a break for a few weeks, and you're going back to carry on with your pro football. So what's the aims and goals for the next 12 months? So you've got to the 23 squad. What's your target? What have you set yourself
So
for?
obviously I've just finished school now, so I've got a little bit more time on my hands to do maybe a little bit of extra training sessions here and there, extra gym session now, 1 or 2, But I think my next step is obviously I'm there for another year. I'm going to see, hopefully the coaches can push me for some trials, maybe not, who knows. But obviously I'm there for another year and we'll see what.
That's amazing. I think next time we get you sitting here in a year's time, you're going to have some amazing news to tell me. That's going to be super, super exciting. So talk a little bit about football. So obviously when did you get back to Australia?
14th of June.
Of June. So you've been back for a little bit.
Quite a bit.
So
now.
you were watching some of the Euros?
Yes.
Yeah. What was your opinions on that? And did it all pan out the way you thought it was going to?
No.
What was you thinking?
Actually, I thought England would pull through, because obviously the first few games they were rough. Had a rough start, and then they got better and better and better and better. But I have to give hats off to Spain. They were consistent throughout the whole tournament, and obviously they deserve to win. So.
Yeah, I think, you're right. I think they got the results from the first day. They went after all the games, intention to really want and win it. I think, unfortunately, it was a lot of negative football, I think, from Southgate and his team. And it was hard for us to watch, especially like speaking to ex-colleagues, because we were part of that project, the EPPP with the Premier League, where we were part of producing players like Jude Bellingham, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Phil Foden, and to see all of this talent that we've now developed in England, and then to play in the way they did, and they were very negative and sitting back and trying to play on the counter, was just so disappointing to see. And then seeing all that talent on the bench, and it was like, those boys should have been given way more game time. It should have been, for me, if you start and you've got 50, 60 minutes to prove yourself, if you don't do anything amazing, off you go, and we've got someone.
Cole Palmer is a very good example. Came on, scored straight away.
It's too little too late with it all, and I think it's a shame. And I think my biggest fear for England now is, and it's quite controversial, but there's already rumours of talking about coaches like Howe at Newcastle and Potter, the ex-Chelsea coach, and I'm like, guys, you've got 7 or 8 of the best players on the planet in your squad. For me, you should be aiming for the highest coach on the planet to manage these players. And I think if they did that, I think not only will they win a World Cup in the USA, I think they'll go on and win a few major trophies if they were to do that. I just hope the English FA actually realise that what they've got in that squad, and they need the best coach. So for me, they should be doing everything to get Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp. They should be Ancelotti. They should be looking to get one of these big coaches and bring them in. No disrespect to Howe, no disrespect to Potter, but they haven't really won anything major in their careers. And these boys are all winners. Phil Foden, Jude Bellingham, Trent Alexander-Arnold, they've all been there. They've won the Premier Leagues, they've won the Leagues, they've won Champions Leagues already. You need a winning coach with a winning mentality. That's my belief. And someone who's going to play attacking football. Can you imagine if England were to play Brazil? I went, right, we're going to go hammer and tongue at you, all out attack. Yeah, it's probably going to finish 5-3, but England will win because they'll go for it. And I think that's what we need. I think we need to see a bit of rock and roll football like Jurgen Klopp. Now, before we finish off, we've got a few minutes to go. You've been in Liverpool, obviously you've been in England. Have you been to any games over the past couple of years? Have you seen any of the
Yes, so
Premier
I've
League?
been to Bayern Munich City game. think it was 2 years ago, last year.
In the Champions League?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was a very, very good game. Very good atmosphere.
Was that at Manchester City or?
Yes, at
Was that the
City.
season they won the Champions League?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
So the atmosphere for the Champions League nights are unbelievable. Like
The Bayern fans. It weren't many Bayern fans, but they were very loud.
they were very loud.
Yeah, very loud.
And have you managed to get a game at maybe Anfield or Goodison?
No, I haven't.
yet?
No, not yet.
Hopefully you can maybe try and do that this season. And from a club point of view, can you tell everyone who is your club team? Who's your favourite club team?
Man City.
Man City. So season this year, obviously a little bit disappointing last season, yet they won the league, but they didn't go on and win that Champions League. I think they made a bit of a mess of it again, didn't they, in the knockout stages. The final is in Germany, in Munich, at the Allianz Arena. We're going to be going in May. And depending on where you're at and with your football, we want to try and give you a special invitation to come and join us. So if you're available, I'll reach out to you.
Perfect.
You can come and join us and be part of our media team, because we do a lot of media and content for the Champions League final. So Man City, do you think they can make it to the Allianz for the final?
I think so.
Who are they going to play in the final? Give us a prediction.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Real Madrid?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a good game.
Again.
Again, yes. And I think Real Madrid with Mbappe
Yeah.
and Bellingham.
So it's a
Vinicius Jr.
scary team, that.
It's I look back at Real Madrid a couple of seasons ago when they played Liverpool in Paris in the final. I went to that one as well. I'm thinking, yeah, we're on the up, Liverpool, and we're rising, and Real Madrid are all getting old, and they've had it now, and then bang, they beat us again against the run of play, and they just know how to win. There was an interesting stat the other day. It was all the men's teams in Spain. So every men's Spanish team, whether it's Real Madrid or Barcelona, including the national team, the last 22 finals in a row, Spanish teams won. So a Spanish men's team haven't lost the final in 22 finals, and that includes Champions League, Europa League, Euros, World Cup. So over the last 22 times, whether it be a club team from Spain or the national team, they've won 22 finals in a row. No one's beaten them in the final. So if Man City play Real Madrid in the final in May, it could be the first time that they lose in 22 games. But it's going to be a big ask, especially with Mbappe in that team now as well.
Yeah, I know.
So, Kai, a big thank you for joining us on the podcast. We're going to be back this time next year. The plan is, if we can get you to Germany, we want to do a podcast with you in Germany, but also help us, and hopefully we'll have some exciting news coming out from the Kai Henning camp. So a big thank you from me.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
And everyone at Euro Football Star. Guys, a big thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode, and join us on our next one on the Rainbow podcast. A big thank you. That we know that your level's gone from there and you're now up there, which gives you a greater chance of success when you go over for trials and that. So let's talk about the UK in January. It's going to be cold. It's going to be wet. Are you super motivated though to go over?
Yep, I've been doing a whole bunch of training. I got to get my hours up. I want to impress when I'm over there and have a good time.
That's amazing. Now, one of the big things that we get all the time, a lot of people make comments on our posts and reels, is you're wasting all of these players and athletes' times, because if they don't hold a British or an EU passport, they can't go for these opportunities. And we're just going to clarify this one. So anyone who goes to, like, maybe with one of our partners' private academies for playing, training and studying, if players have got access to a UK or an EU passport, that's great. And that obviously saves a little bit of time. But for those boys and girls out there who are on just maybe Australian or American or Canadian passports, they can go in on an education visa at the age of 16 into the UK, and it's 14 for those guys going into France and Spain. So anyone who is thinking, I can't go because I don't have any ancestry, it's not true, you can. But for you, Maya, have you got any ancestry? Have you got any British or UK passports? Or?
I do. So my mum's great-grandfather, I'm pretty sure. So I have a little bit of ancestry over there, but most of it is actually Argentina.
Oh, wow. So you got a bit of South American flavour in there as well. And I know you guys did live as well with Mum. You was over in Canada for a while as well, and She was out there for how many years?
I have no clue. I was not born.
Oh, you wasn't born at that time, was you? I think I remember Mum saying to me it was about 4 years. So when you go on the trials and we're taking you across to the UK to pit yourself, it must be really interesting that you've gone from being in Yeppoon, then we took you to Brisbane, you're playing under 17s, and then the next big leap is, wow, we're now going to drop you in to the UK. Are you excited by it?
I'm very excited. I can't wait.
What's one of the things that you're looking forward to the most when you go over there?
Just the experience and what I can improve on when I'm over there and stuff like that.
And what are you going to feel like if you get over there and you see the level and you think it's so far above where you're at now? Are you gonna be downbeat with that, or are you gonna stay positive and motivated and keep kicking on?
I want to try get to that level, so if they're much higher, I'm just going to keep training, keep going at it, and see what I can do over time.
That's amazing. Now we're just going to go to an ad break very quickly, and we'll be back in the next 60 seconds. Everyone, enjoy this next ad break, and me and Maya will be back in 60 seconds.
Hey everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and it'll give you your results, physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024 and also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up. You get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback, and maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, it's Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood Podcast. Now we're back with Maya Allsop. Now Maya, before the break we were talking about trials, we were talking about objectives and match analysis. One of the other big things and one of the other pillars that we have on the Professional Player Pathway Programme, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we can connect with you, we can get your data, we get your stats, we give you feedback. One of the things is GPS tracker. So talk to us a little bit about your best friend, the GPS tracker. Does it help you? Does it not help you? And how does it work?
So it helps me so much. It helps me see what I do in my trainings, if it's a low intensity training, high intensity, and what my stats are. So you get distance, speed, calories, and other things like that. You also get a heat map. This helps so much because when you have it on, it feels like you have a coach standing right beside you, and you don't want to get a low intensity one if it's a high intensity training. So it's just a reminder of what you need to do and that you have to keep going no matter what.
Yeah, that's really good. And we're finding that once you boys and girls are more accountable because you're actually looking at your own sessions, you know, the last thing you need is when you come off a session is your mum or your dad going, that was rubbish, you didn't put in enough effort, why aren't you working hard enough? Also, sometimes when mums and dads say that, they're actually wrong. They're not actually right in what they're saying. But the beauty of the GPS tracker, it is objective. It does give you real and live data. So just to explain for anyone who's watching and listening in, a GPS tracker is no different than having a GPS tracker on your phone or in your car. When you actually go on the field, it's actually beaming the data up to the satellite all the way back down. It then spits it into our partnered app, which is Stat Sports, and that's who our GPS trackers are with, and they're our partners. But also the exciting thing is that data gets put into our app and portal. So all your results are in one place for you to see. And then you know if you have done a good session or you haven't done a good session, because the last thing you need is mum or dad or a coach giving you information that's probably not correct. And the good thing is when you've just said, you know, if you realise you've recorded a low intensity session, but it should have been a high intensity, you basically just know next time you go out, you've got to work a bit harder. So it must be nice knowing that you can say to mum and dad, shh, be quiet, I know what I'm doing, we've got all the data. Now this is one of the things that our mums and dads and parents of the kids on the programme, they love as well, is that they don't have to worry about what you're doing and what you're not doing, because it does flag it up in the system, and we'll speak about it a little bit, and I don't think you've had one yet, but in the event you're not recording a minimum of 5 sessions or more on the GPS a week, you get flagged up with a yellow card. If you get 2 yellow cards, you get a red card. Now, you haven't had any yellow cards yet, so you're all going really good at the moment. But it's a good thing as well, because one of the big things that we get as mums and dads out there, like, we're so busy with work, we're so busy with life, we don't think we can add this program in because it's actually
it's just going to make us too busy and we've got too much to do. What do you say to that?
It's more of a self-efficient thing, so you don't need to worry about doing your work and then the program, because it's so easy to do. You got to do little things, just like putting a tracker in, which only takes around 2 minutes to set it up and everything, so it's easy.
So that's one of the things that we realised we weren't communicating properly to parents. They think with the professional player pathway, it's coming down to a local field, it's doing an extra 4 sessions a week. It's not that at all, is it? It's actually overseeing what you're currently doing, checking the hours that you're doing, checking the data that we're getting off the tracker, but it's also making sure that when you're going on the pitch on a game day, you're listening to your coach, but also you're actually working on individual objective, which is going to get you better and help you develop in your game. And also, unfortunately, a lot of coaches that you have experience within Australia, a lot of them are qualified and are good, but they haven't really developed superstars in the world. They haven't developed WSL stars. They haven't developed Premier League stars, so they don't know what it is you need to develop fully as one of them. Now, with the 7 pillars of the programme, this is how we guarantee players not only are going to be successful, but guarantee your trials, but also guarantee your success when you go over there. So you must be super excited that when you go across in Jan and in June, July, that you're going to have an opportunity to go to an academy in the UK or France or Spain, and you've got basically 3 options in front of you. Going back 12 months ago, do you even think that would have been possible? No. And for you, with the pro player pathway, for any mums and dads out there thinking, oh, this is just something that we don't need, it's too much, we're okay because we're currently in the state programme, we're currently in the represent, what would you say to people like that? Do you think they need it?
I say everyone needs this if they want to go further and be professional and play overseas, because without it, there's not enough opportunity, especially in rural areas like Yeppoon and other places like that.
Yeah. So this works for anyone, whether they're regional, whether they live in the big cities, doesn't matter where you are in the world, anyone can jump on this programme. If anyone is interested, you can go to proplayerpathway.com and it's all in the show notes below. Now, before we finish with Maya, we're just going to ask what you've got on over the next couple of weekends, the next couple of weeks, and what's going on with your football. So have you got any football this weekend, any matches?
So I'm playing in the Gold Coast.
Very good. And who are you playing against?
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast United, is it?
Yep.
Very good, because I know there's quite a few teams down at the Gold Coast. And then training-wise, we'll just touch on very quickly. So you're doing 3-4 sessions a week with Logan at the moment? How many are you doing a week?
I'm doing 3 sessions a week with Logan.
3 sessions a week. And you're roughly doing about 15, 16 hours a week. And we'll just explain the premise quickly before we go, because we didn't cover it before. But for players on our programme, one of the things that we identify as well is not only making sure that you're doing enough hours, but making sure that you're not doing too little as well. So one of the areas that we work on is our plus 130, which is what we developed in the Premier League many years ago. So if you're 15 years of age, you should be doing 16 hours a week of training. However, 70% of that's specific to your sport, which is football for you, or soccer as we call it in Australia. And then 30% is non-specific, which is things like recovery. Talk to me very quickly, what's some of the non-specific stuff that you do day to day? Is it anything that you're doing in school? What is it you're doing?
So I take my dog for a walk. I do a little bit of swimming, taking after my mum with that. But just little things, like at school, I play a little bit of tennis for HP and stuff like that, which brings it up about the 30% that I need to be doing.
That's good. And how are you finding that? Obviously, if you think back to when you were in Yeppoon, how many hours a week do you think you were doing there, roughly, give or take?
I reckon I was only doing about 2-3 hours a week.
And now you're currently up to that 15, 16, and you're obviously more than able to cope with the football now in Brisbane, and you're playing probably 2 age groups up as well. So it must be exciting to see that way you can take this in the future.
Yeah, I love seeing like the way I've improved in not just my training, but in myself as well, like health and other stuff like that.
That's amazing. Now, we are going to get you back on, and we'll probably get you back on after your trials in the UK and France and Spain. So we'll bring you back on maybe August, September next year. We're excited to see where you're going, and also you're going to be a year older this time next year, so you'll be 16. So hopefully we'll have some exciting news to share with everyone. So will you join us again in a year's time?
Definitely.
Thanks, Maya. A big thank you from me and everyone at the Raymond Wood podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood podcast. Now hopefully I get this right. So Emily, how do I pronounce your last name? Because I'm hopeless with
Gilnick.
Gilnick, it is,
Yeah.
Gilnick. I was saying to Maya off stage this morning, it's really funny how people say names differently, and I heard your name said 3 different ways on interviews.
I get Gilnich, Gilnick, Gilnick.
So it's Emily Gilnick.
Yeah,
I'm so glad it's Emily Gilnick.
With the English accent, it sounds even better.
Now, Emily, most people will know who's watching our podcast. We've got a lot of families who've got daughters and sons, and they'll know you being a football player, being a Matilda, ex-Liverpool, thank God, because I love Liverpool. Bayern Munich, Aston Villa. I've got an affinity with Aston Villa as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I first want to touch on how and when and why did you first start playing football?
Competition.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with competition. To be honest, I didn't grow up with any talent, any skill, any tricks. Didn't have coaches, and I preach this all the time. I just had this hunger for competition. I, number one, wanted to beat the boys when I was in school. I wanted to be better than everyone else, but I was obsessed with development, and I still am, which is crazy. And, you know, that's why I always stress to people that it's like the Leo Messi, right? Like, he always does the basics over and over again because there's no ceiling for him. He's just obsessed with improvement and develop. You can never do the basics enough, and I still live and breathe by that. And since I was a young kid, I taught myself and I developed myself into becoming a pro, but it didn't happen overnight. So I'm just obsessed with competition and development. And like I'm 32 now, and I still am. I'm still not satisfied with what I've achieved, and I still know I've got so much more growth.
It's funny, I see it as soon as you walked in the room before, and people always say to me, Ray, you've coached for over 25 years. What's the one thing you look for? It's exactly that energy you're giving off. Like, I had 2 boys at the time at Leicester City, Luke Thomas and Harvey Barnes, and they had that same motivation. When they come in, they weren't the best. Luke didn't have a left foot, and he turned out to be one of the best left footers in the game.
Yep.
And it's like those 2 boys are still striving in their game, and it's that energy, that motivation, and that's what I do in my book, and we'll talk about it in a bit, the Pro Player Pathway. It's like, talent is most definitely made. It's not born. Like, if you're going to be 5 foot tall, there's a chance you're never going to be an NBA basketball star. Yeah. We get that. But if you get 99% of what you need physically, anyone can make themselves into anything. And you obviously believe that as well.
I
with
believe
the right
it.
amount of work.
I actually had an interesting encounter, which is good to share. When I was at Villa, I ran into a coach, and I remember him telling me the story. He used to private train Phil Foden. Yeah. And he used to say to me, at the end of one of Phil Foden's games, he won player of the match. And he had 2 players that he trained, and the difference between the other player is the other player messaged the coach and said, I won player of the match, how good? When Phil won player of the match, he messaged the guy that's been training him and said, player of the match doesn't matter for me because I made a mistake here, here, and here. Yeah. So it's just this different mindset. And I feel like there's a rare breed of people who still have it to this day. And like, if you use Phil as an example, he's at the top of his game. Like, he's going places. Yeah. He embodies what every young aspiring male footballer wants to be. They want to be Phil Foden or play like him and be like him. And so for him to still have that mindset, I feel like I related so much to that because that is still me to this day. I'm obsessed with perfection, and I'm grateful that I'm never going to achieve it, which is exciting because that means there's no ceiling. Yeah. I'm always looking for improvement.
I love that analogy of Phil Foden. I actually worked on a project called the EPPP in the Premier League. And players like Phil Foden, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jude Bellingham, we worked with all these players. And what we'd done was we'd done a big research study for the Premier League to see why we weren't producing enough world-class players. And the findings that we got was 1,600 pages of data, but the main finding was we weren't doing enough repetition. And what we found was when you put enough repetition in place, players become that critical, like you just said, they will pick out the smallest things they've done wrong. They're not interested in what they've done right. They expect that as a minimum, but it's the little things that they're getting wrong, and that's the
standards. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Well, I think, you know, without pointing out the generation these days, is everyone wants something for nothing. People just, you know, they expect to be in the green and gold jersey. They expect to be a starting 11, but they're not obsessed with these small details. They just think they've done enough. And I think complacency is the scariest thing as athletes. You can never be complacent. You've always got to be obsessed with these 1% details because otherwise you'll never become the Phil Fodens or the Messis or, you know. Yeah. So that's, I mean, I still live and breathe those same values. They're truly embedded in my mentality.
One of the things I really wanted to touch on, and we just spoke about it off camera, is about the change in women's football in the past 10 years. And I spoke about being a dad of 2 daughters. I'm like so excited about what's ahead for women's football. But it was funny, we just touched on Skelmersdale.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember the days when Liverpool women and academy teams were training down in Skelmersdale. And anyone who knows Skelmersdale, it's an okay place. But
it's rough, yeah.
It can have similarities to certain places.
You got to
around
remember,
Brisbane.
this was my first time overseas at a professional contract, and I was in Skelmersdale, and yeah, it was tough.
So for you to see like your days when you're talking about, you know, you weren't allowed to play at Anfield, you had to train in Skelmersdale, so like you see what the Liverpool women's team have got now. Do you get a little bit jealous of that, or are you actually happy it's moved towards that way and now women are finally getting what they deserve?
No jealousy. It's pure happiness. I'm proud. I'm a stepping stone for sure. I wish 10 years ago was where it is now, but I'm all a part of a stepping stone. I'm a part of that journey of women's progression. So like my first overseas contract, Liverpool. Trained twice a week. I remember begging the coach to private train with me in the park, like thick paddock grass. I was training an extra 2-3 times a week just with the coach. Crazy, he agreed to do it. Yeah. So I'm training twice a week with the girls. They're driving 2-3 hours a time for training. You know, we're out the back in some field with hardly any lights. The under 12 boys at the time had a locker room, shower facilities. We had nothing, and you know, we're playing at Skem, so in the middle of nowhere, really. And I remember the record attendance we had was against Everton because it was a derby. We had 1,000, and I was like in awe. I'm like, 1,000 people. Yeah. This is unreal, you know. And that was going back then. And I saw the shift in women's football, and I was lucky enough to experience it. And I was there actually. I think it was at the Emirates, the Euros. Yeah. Was it at the Emirates? No, sorry, at the what's the main one in England?
At Wembley or
at Wembley?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
No, you're right.
I'm getting. It's been a while, yeah. So I experienced, got to watch England win the Euros that year, and you know, obviously the follow-on of that, playing at Aston Villa that season, it erupted. So not only did the stats of kids in school playing football, even though that we already assume they live and breathe football, but the attendance at our games. And what it did is it helped the pay go up. It improved the facilities. It got an injection of, I guess, financial support from independent sponsors. Like it just blew up, and it made these young kids dream. Like, because when I started playing football, I knew I had to have a job. I had to study. I mean, at one point I had 2 or 3 jobs, and you know, we couldn't afford to pay for private coaches, and we couldn't afford to go to all these fancy clinics and stuff like that. And you know, now you've got young kids that are going to school with a football. I'm glad I don't have to say soccer ball, because every other podcast I have to say soccer.
No, we say football on here.
Drives me mental. And they say rugby or AFL. I said no, the real football. You know, so it's come leaps and bounds, and I witnessed that in England, so that was pretty special. But then what I witnessed in Australia with the Matildas, and unfortunately I ran out of time with an injury, so it was a really hard time for me to be on the sideline and not be lacing up the boots. But I witnessed for the first time, which was so strange, I was in the stadium watching the girls make history. Yeah. So I got to feel something that when you're a player, you're in the zone, you know. Yeah. It's all white noise, but I got to like feel, hear, you know, just I was in the actual eruption in the time of watching Australia fall in love with the women's game, and put the Matildas and women's football on the map. And so that was pretty surreal to witness. And then the statistics that have gone up in sport, in NPL, in club level, all these young girls I had a girl a couple months ago, and she happened to be the first future baller sign up, and she messaged me out of the blue and said, hey, I've never wanted to play football my whole life, and I've never even kicked the ball, but I'd love to be trained by you. Yeah. And because I loved watching the Matildas at the World Cup. Yeah. And she was unbelievable. And this is what I'm talking about. We've got so much talent sitting on the sideline who aren't exposed to women's football, and who have never dreamt about it, because it was never really, I want to be a full-time professional footballer. Yeah. It wasn't really in the scope, because you knew you had to have 2 or 3 jobs and study, and you know, you couldn't really rely. Whereas now you can kind of throw all your eggs in one basket and try and become a pro footballer. And when I say I coached this girl, and like, she could kick, she had a touch, and to tell me she's never played football before, like,
scary.
We've got talent out there. And now these girls are so inspired. They want to be Matildas. They want to play professional football. So it just opens up so many doors, and it's just inspired a nation, and it's inspired these young girls. So it's incredible.
It's so exciting. Just, yeah, we take a lot of players back from Australia to the UK. And one of the scary things is when we take these young boys and girls across, they can not only match them when they're younger, but they're better than them. It's only when they get to 13, 14, that's where we see that drop off, unfortunately. And we'll touch on this a little bit later on. But it's so exciting to see, like, even my youngest girl, like, my eldest girl got pushed into tennis a bit by me, and I admit that because I didn't want her to play football because my whole life was football and I felt like it was too much. But then, like, my youngest one just decided after a chance meeting with Sam Kerr at the airport last year that she's like, she's 10, she's been a gymnast her whole life, and she's like, Dad, I want to be a football player now, like Sam Kerr, I want to be a Matilda. And I'm like, this is good because she's decided it. Now she trains 3-4 times a week. She plays 2 games of a weekend. Cool. And I'm watching her, and her team, she plays at a private academy called the Football Company. And they put their girls' teams in boys' community competition. So they play against boys. And most weekends they're losing 4-1, 4-2, but they're getting a challenge. Yeah. And to watch her at the weekend taking 2 boys on and then set up, and I'm like, a year ago she couldn't even kick a ball.
Wasn't even interested.
So how many future Matildas are we missing out on because we're not giving them the opportunity? Oh. And it's scary. Now, one of the big things I wanted to touch on, and we'll talk about it, was future ballers and what it is and where it come from. And I haven't even researched it too much purposely because I wanted to hear it firsthand from you.
What's your daughter's name?
Paloma.
Yeah. Okay. So what I would say back to that, and this is a reason I'll reflect on your daughter, is because it's exactly why we're starting Future Baller. So she then said, I met Sam Kerr and I want to become a Matilda and I want to be just like Sam Kerr. Yeah. We want Paloma to say, I'm going to be the next Paloma. Yeah. She is the next, she doesn't need to be the next Sam Kerr. Yeah. She's the future. Yeah. And we want, this Future Baller Clinic is to showcase and inspire and build confidence in these young girls that you can be the next Paloma. Yeah. You can be the next. You don't have to want to be the next Caitlin Ford, you can be the future. And like, you know, when I grew up, I was pretty resilient, right? But I had coaches who didn't believe in me. I had people who say I'd never make it, and I didn't make it through the pathway. So I have a very interesting story. But, you know, I believed in myself, and not all these young girls can really gain that self-confidence because they've got too many other factors that are putting them down. So this Future Baller Clinic is all about not only becoming good people, but the desire to become good players and believing that they can get to the top, because a lot of it is just belief. Yeah. Some of these players are so talented, but they don't believe they'll ever get there. I never thought I would get an A-League contract. I got one. I never thought I would play for Young Matildas. I got one, scored a hat-trick on my debut. And then certainly didn't think I'd be a Matilda 11 years later. Yeah. And for 11 whole years, because it's so hard to get there and even harder to stay there. And I always preach that. But it's all about having these beliefs. And once you get there, it's like, okay, I've got that clarity. Yeah, I actually can do this. And then what's next? And then what's next? So this Future Baller Clinic is, Chloe and I want to showcase our journey, that it hasn't been like this. Yeah. It's been like this, and a lot of these, but without these low points, they're the biggest learnings, because if you have just a trajectory of always going up, you'll never achieve greatness. No. It's just impossible. You need to have setbacks and you need to have failures, because that's how you grow. So we want these girls, and most importantly, we want these parents to listen and hear that your girls are going through exactly what we would have gone through, and it's not all smooth sailing, and it is hard to get there, and it is really hard to stay there, but it's possible. Yeah. Because a lot of time these young girls don't believe in themselves, and the parents do, but trying to find that translation so they can both hear it and they can both realize that this success story hasn't always been successful. Yeah. It seems like that from an outside perspective, and that's why really important a lot of the Matildas are coming out with their journeys and their experiences, because they haven't always just had the glitz and glamour. Like, they didn't just, their lives changed at the World Cup, but what about the 10 years of hell and sacrifice it's taken to get there? Everyone forgets the struggles and the tribulations and the lows and the almost quitting and the giving up, all those things it's taken to get to this pinnacle World Cup, which was life-changing for so many people. People don't see it. No. And, you know, I think everyone thinks that there's so many people, especially around the ages now, the older girls, that think they can become Matildas. That's one really good thing. But then I think once people come into camp, they realise that there's just a level here.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is strip that right back and prepare them for when they get that opportunity to come into camp and to be Matildas, they're there because they know what to expect, they know the standard, and hopefully we can instill our values and philosophies in these young girls, not only to build confidence and belief, but to get them to thinking a certain level and a certain standard that enough is never enough.
Yeah.
And you've always got to have high standards. So we want to be a representation of that. And Chloe and I really embody everything that we are showcasing in this clinic. And it's not just, I hate calling it a clinic.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it a clinic.
Sounds very American.
It's not a clinic. It's not some like fun. I mean, it's going to be fun to a degree because, you know, it's an element of that age. But what we're delivering there is something I never had as a kid. And it's something I could have dreamed of, being coached by Matildas and some of the best coaches, and that can give me the tools to, you know, to reach further than what I ever thought or believed in. And so, yeah, that's really trying to keep it short because I'm so passionate about it. But that's really what it is, just instilling belief and confidence in these young girls to strive.
It's funny you say that. Like, one of the things that I'd done, going back to my eldest daughter who said as a tennis player, I'd done it to prove a point with her when she was 9 and 10, but I just purely put her through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
I went against the coach's guidelines for technically how we develop it as a player, how we develop strokes, and I wanted to prove a point that just through repetition was enough to make it. She won state titles, she won national titles, she was the first female to win an under-10 mixed competition nationally, and didn't just win it, she hammered everyone. So I gave her that example, so now she's 15 looking back to prove a point that you can do it just on repetition alone. But if you put everything else on, it's a bonus. And she's just come from being 2 years out of competition because it's very political and hard in tennis, in the tennis world. And I said, you don't need to be playing comps when you're 13, 14. You just need to train. She's just gone back into comps. She played nationals. She won a final, a consolation final. She played in her first women's competition at the weekend. And the point I'm trying to get to with this is she played against a girl who she beat in juniors really easy, and she lost 6-1, 6-2. So I said, look, you've got to reflect this way. Let's have a little look. Most of your games went to deuce, but let's have a look. So she looked at the other player. She looked at her. This other player's played 62 competitive matches this year. My daughter's played 3. I said, do you honestly believe what my belief is talent's made, not born? Do you think you had the right to beat her because you've only played 3 competitive matches? She's like, oh, no, Dad. And I said, exactly. I said, so in a year's time, once you've got 80 matches under your belt, when you play it again, what's going to happen? And she's like, I'll probably beat it. I said, exactly. And that's what I don't think mums and dads and players do. They don't reflect enough that way. They just don't get the success there and then, and they drop out. And I think my girls are very lucky because of my background, and this is what I'm trying to do through the podcast, through the social media reels we do, through the professional player pathway in the book we'll talk about. My whole life is not just about girls, but boys as well, but about mums and dads. Don't pull it too early, when the roots are just grown underneath and it's about to come out, and then parents pull it away because they listen to naysayers who go, it's not possible. And to see your passion, you're never going to make it, and it kills me. And it's like, you will make it, and it's really super important. We're going to go to our first ad break, but we'll be back in a minute. I think this could go for 3 hours.
I know, we're probably going to have an ad break.
There's a guy in the US called Rich Roll, and he does a podcast, and his podcasts go for 3 hours.
Yeah, I know Rich,
I could have done one with Lewis, and I think I could do one with you. But a big thank you for joining us. We'll be back in a few minutes, and enjoy this short ad break.
Would you one day like to be a professional football player? Would you like to be part of our Pro Player Pathway? What is the Pro Player Pathway? It's an opportunity for all Australian football players aged between 10 and 23 who want to join us to become the next professional football player. On the Pro Player Pathway, you get to join me and my team free of charge to an event all around Australia. When you join me, we're going to teach you the secrets of football in Europe. And one day, maybe, you could be gracing the Champions League final. Guys, over the next 12 months, we're going to be coming around all the major cities of Australia. And when we come around all the major cities, we're going to be running our free events everywhere we go. So guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's a free event. It's for boys and girls aged 10 to 23. And I'm going to teach you the secrets of becoming a top European football player. Oh, and one final thing. We're going to be giving away 20 scholarships to join me on this program of a lifetime.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood Podcast. We're back with Emily. Now, we were just talking a little bit about and touching on future ballers. So to get it right, whether it's a clinic or a camp, it's about helping young girls and families understand that it is possible to make it as a football player. And maybe just to give them that first touch point of the first experience of playing football. Is this something that you're going to run? Is it like once a year? Is it every school holidays? What's the plans for future ballers? And I know looking at you, it's probably going to be like...
That's a great question. Initially, we wanted to do it as a one-off, you know, a life-changing experience. Obviously, we're going to reevaluate. We've had some feedback that people would like it to be a yearly thing. We're going to reevaluate that once we do this clinic. As footballers, we don't have much time, so I'm yet to tell my coach that I'm going to miss pretty much a whole week of pre-season.
Good luck.
So yeah, and he's actually English background, so you know I'm in a bit of a tough position there, and you know, because the Olympics, I've been fortunate enough that now that I'm not there with this injury, I've had all this time to do stuff like this and to work on Future Baller and develop it. So yeah, that's a troubling question and a tough one to ask, but it's, you know, I would say it's the stepping stone to, and we're never going to give up trying to push women's football further and further. Like since that World Cup, what Chloe and I felt and the opportunity we saw, and it's not about, for people that know me, it's never been about making money. I'd rather be broke than not do something that I love. Yeah. So it's about keeping this game alive. We've gotten it so far. I want these young, the next generation, that I just want them inspiring. Not if it's not about being a Matilda, I want them to be so inspired that they want to make a club team.
Yeah.
They want to make an NPL. They want to make just a school football team, like whatever it is. Obviously, the end goal is, you know, we want them to strive to be a Matilda. Yeah. But I want them to just strive to go just one step further than what they think they're capable of. That's what it's all about.
And even maybe becoming a coach or becoming a physio, and just actually realising there's a lot of opportunities in the game.
That's right.
I knew growing up in Liverpool, football crazy family, all Liverpool and Everton fans. I got to 15 and I'm like, I'm nowhere near as good as any of my mates. And I started to piece it together, and I'm like, I started to look and I'm like, I'm training once a week and I'm playing a game of a weekend because mum and dad were working 60-hour weeks. My mate was quite fortunate, we laugh about it, but like his dad was on the dole on Centrelink and he got to go training 4 or 5 times a week, and then he went on and played pro and played at a really high level. And I think sometimes your environment that you might think goes against you actually goes in your favour. But again, I seen it growing up, and I went down this mission where I'm like, well, I was never good enough to make it as a player, but could I become a coach? And then when I started going down my coaching journey, I'm like, actually, talent's made, it's not born. Actually, I'm like, people used to tell, like, my idols growing up were players like Ian Rush, John Barnes. And it was like, I used to see these guys walking around the streets of Liverpool and thinking, oh, they're so lucky to be born that way. And then I realised,
that line kills me.
When I was a kid, because that's what I got taught by mum and dad. And everyone believed, like, you know, it makes me laugh. You know, we talk about Hollywood actors like Tom Cruise. Whether you hate him or love him, for me, he's one of the best actors ever, because you follow him and see how much he applies himself into his industry. He does all his own stunts, and it's like these guys like yourself go above and beyond to achieve what you want to do.
I just think, you know, it's hard to talk about when you talk about yourself, but I'm living proof of talent hasn't got me here. I still believe, sometimes I still have days where I feel like I'm not good enough, and then I'm in the green and gold jersey and I'm about to go on, or I'm starting a match and I'm still doubting myself. Like, these are normal habits, but all I know is I wouldn't have had the career I've had if I didn't do all these small things, if I didn't have consistency and routine. And so, like, you know, for instance, training with Lewis, like a couple times a week at the crack of dawn. Like, I've been so fortunate to have all these people externally that because I'm so passionate and I had such a desire to get better, that also drove them to want to train me, like, for nothing. Give up their time 2 hours, you know, in the morning before I went to football training. And they're all the small things that helped me get these big contracts, that got me these overseas moves. Like, I wouldn't have been a professional footballer if I didn't go out and train extra than everybody else. It's as black and white as that. I was obsessed with developing a left foot, obsessed with getting my touch better, because I was not born with this footballing talent. Most of my goals were toe punts. I told someone the other day I scored 60 goals one season for my first under-12s team, and they were all toe punts. You know, like, I didn't have step-overs. I didn't have unreal coaches. I had no offense to the dads, but I had people's dads, you know, coaching me. And, you know, but the best thing I ever did was not only the extra coaching, the private one-on-one stuff, but I trained with the boys for as long as I could. It's a secret weapon. And, you know, people can argue it all day long, but what it did is it's sink or swim in that moment. It made me resilient. I trained and played with boys as much as I could. And once I was in the academy, we played boys every week, and it just made you better. It's not about then trying to beat the boys. It's just you knew that they were a level above.
Yeah.
Whether it's age, physique, technicality, they were just a level above.
Yeah.
So it made you rise to the occasion, and you pretty quickly you either went this way or you went this way. And I always thrived in uncomfortable positions. So yeah, that was a huge factor in the reason as to where I am today.
Yeah, it was funny, like we were just talking before about my youngest daughter, and she's at the football company in Brisbane, and they strategically place all the girls' teams into community-level boys' competitions. And some of the comments you hear from parents is just, like, disgusting. Like, and I have to stand there and bite my tongue. I've got to be really, really careful. But you obviously went through probably a lot of this as yourself as well, growing up, and it still amazes me today in 2024, like some of the stuff that we hear. But going back to that point is, like, it's so important. I know this, that girls play with boys as much as possible. Like, even going back to my eldest girl, she's always hit with boys. She's got a male coach, a male hitting partner. She will never beat the male hitting partner ever in tennis. And for me, I love that because she's always guaranteed a challenge and training every day. And it's like with the boys, I say it openly, like, the talented boys need to be playing up 2-3 age groups. But again, unfortunately, through FFA and regulation and all the rest of it, they have this age relative rule. They won't let them play up age groups. You've got to get a letter from the king signed before you can play up. And I'm like, guys, when are you going to get it? Like, seriously, the talented boys need to play up 2 to 3 age groups. The talented girls need to be with the boys.
It's how they progress.
That's how you're going to progress. So you're obviously on the same line of thinking with that.
Definitely. Yeah. I can't say how strong I am on that. And still to this day, I'll still do it. Like, so 2 pre-seasons ago, an off-season, I had finished up at Villa and I came straight back here and I trained with an NPL men's side who were like between the ages of 20 and 30.
Yeah.
And I'm credible, they respect me, but they don't take it easy on me, and I wouldn't want that.
No.
I'm like, stay at your level, and I want to fight every single training to just be at your standard, at your level. And that's what I love. And that's something rewarding about being in a male-dominant environment. As a female, you've either got to hold your own or you get left behind.
Yeah.
And like, I'm saying that women's football, the level has gotten stronger now, but in times where like you're preparing for a major tournament, you might just need to throw yourself in that environment because it will progress you. Like, it's the speed of progression, right?
Yeah.
You'll just get there that much quicker. And you're constantly challenged. You can't afford to have one bad touch or not make one run or track back one runner. Where in women's football, sometimes if you go into an NPL situation, you can get away with those small things.
Yeah.
But in men's football, you can't.
You're not going to get away from
And then, you know, you wanna make sure that coach wants to have you back again next season for a bit of training, because if you can't handle it now, you won't, you know.
You're not going to do it next year.
That's right, yeah.
Just in regards to Pathway, you touched on a little bit, and it's really interesting because it's the book that I've wrote, Professional Player Pathway, and it's about whether you're a boy or girl. And my belief is we don't really have a pathway in Australia. And a lot of people have a go at me for it, and I don't say it with a bad intention. It's like there's no real proper pathway. If you're a boy or a girl and you want your son or daughter to make it, there's nothing on a website that goes, you should do A to Z to follow it. So you touched on your pathway and you said it was a very different pathway. And one of the controversial things I always say is, like, a lot of people say, well, yeah, Socceroos go good, but the Matildas are amazing. And I'm like, they are, but most of the Matildas are developed in Europe. Like, they don't stay here till they're 18. They go a lot early. So talk to me about your pathway and what was the pathway?
Yeah, so I had all of my friends at the time when I was playing like rep football, right, and trying to make the schoolgirls Australian team. I had a few rolled ankles and just some really unfortunate luck at the time that all of my friends were surpassing. And, you know, I was much younger than, I think, 13 or 14. I actually took a year off football I just couldn't even believe I did it. So I took a step back, came back in, and I went on a school trip to Canberra, which is the IAS.
Yeah.
Matildas happened to be training there. So you can imagine me as a young 14, 15-year-old. I'm like, what? This is crazy. Like, I'm idolizing these girls. Like, I want to be a Matilda one day, not knowing that I would ever get there. And my school teacher at the time believed in me so much, and honestly, more than I believed in myself. He went up to the head coach at that time, who was Tom Samani, and said, so I've got this girl, which is just crazy that he's even asking head coach, can she have a crack? Can you give her a run tomorrow in training? And he came back and said yes. Had no idea who I was.
Amazing. Who was your teacher?
Yeah, Ross Page. Yeah,
Okay.
knew nothing about me. But all my sports teachers were huge believers of me throughout, and they saw a talent, I guess, or a potential that I didn't know I quite had. So I trained with the Matildas, and in that moment, it's like you're either up to the task or you're not. Had the training of my life. Tom Samani gets in touch with my teacher. Hey, can she come back? We've got an internal game against boys tomorrow. Does she want to have a run? So my school's sitting around the field watching me, and I'm playing with the Matildas. 15-year-old, never had an opportunity, never made it past rep. All my friends were to the QAS program and playing in the academy there, which was essentially the stepping stone to an A-League contract for Brisbane Roar. And he gets on the phone the next day, calls up Jeff Hopkins, who was my Melbourne Victory coach, but Brisbane Roar coach at the time, and said, I've got this girl, you've got to get her into your academy. And the years before, I'd never received a letter to go to this academy, which was the stepping stone for the next contract. And spent the half a year in the academy, got my first contract with Brisbane Roar. So then I'm thinking, okay, maybe I've got something here. I've got a lot to work on. I'm not technically quite there, but I know I've got a burning desire, and I've just trained with the Matildas. It's crazy. But that moment could have been easily lost for me in that moment. If I didn't have this desire, and if I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do, and if I didn't step up to that level, that opportunity's gone.
Yeah.
So I get my first Brisbane Roar contract, played for Roar for 9 seasons, got a Young Matildas call up, scored a hat trick on debut, which was just insane because we were losing 3-0 and came back and won 4-3. And then I'm thinking, can I play for the Matildas? Can I go one more? And then got my call up and been in there for 11 years now. And, it wasn't necessarily, and like you said, there isn't really a pathway, but at that time it was like, can you just get yourself into the Academy of Sport with the QAS? And then it was just, can you get an A-League contract? But there was never any set in stone of this is how these young girls can do it. You go here, and then through that pathway you get into here. And the reason why so much talent was wasted at that point in time is because families' financial position, they couldn't go to these rep school games or these rep games, and that was a big part of why it wasn't successful, and why we were missing out on this massive pool of talent, because some of these young talented girls were their families weren't in financial position to pay, because it was a lot of money back then. I'm so grateful that my family could drive me 4 hours to Coffs Harbour to do this tournament. And that's how you would make the state team and the national team. But families didn't have access to that kind of money back then.
We've got families now, and they're on our programme on the Pro Player Pathway, and there's girls in there, and they're paying $3,000-4,000 every time they go on this national ID camp for QAS, and it's we've got to get better at it.
Yeah.
We give away, just on our programme alone last year, I think we give away in excess of $1 million worth of scholarships. I'm I'm a one-man band.
Yeah.
I was driving Uber 3 years ago. So if I've worked out a way, how can the FFA and the state federations not work it out? And I think we've got to try and get better, rather than people badgering, and we've got to get there and go, look, we've got the answers for you. One of the big things we do is actually how to identify talent. I know you've probably seen this many times yourself, but you go to a selection trial, you get a bid put on with a number on, you go and play in a game, and it's so subjective.
Yeah.
It's the most subjective, opinionated thing I've ever seen in my life. I was very fortunate. I worked at PSG, and Ancelotti was there at the time, and they had this thing just before all the money come in, and they used to have an open trial, and this open trial was anyone in the men's game who was coming off a professional contract could come for a trial for a week. The problem they had was they'd get 700-800 players off them. So in day one, they'd done this objective test, and it was a series of 6 tests, and it wasn't anything that reinvented the wheel. It was a beep test. It was, could you juggle the ball to 100? It was some really simple stuff. But what we done was we ruled 90% of them out from day one, and it gave them a test score. And I think that's what we need to be doing, is we need to look at some of these girls and go, it's a free event. All our events we do are free. And it costs us 50-60 grand to run every event, but we've found a way to do it. We run an event, we do objective testing, we give them a test score, but also it's not about telling them what they're rubbish at, it's actually telling them what they're not good at, what they are good at, and how they can get better, and we do all that for free. So what we're trying to do is influence the federations and the state governments and people who are running football, is to say, you can do this test, and if we identify Emily as a 12-year-old who's definitely better than anything we've got, we need to find a way, if they can't afford it financially, how we get it to be in the squads, because shouldn't it be about talent?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be about money. And that's what we're trying to do, is influence. So similar to you with Future Ballers, that's what we've tried to do with our programme. We're trying to influence like the federations and the Football Association.
That's unreal. Like, I mean, yours is on a much larger scale, but I know that if I had access to something like this when I was younger, all I think is like, I know I got to where I wanted to, but I got there slowly, and I kind of got there on my own, right?
Yeah.
Imagine how good these players could be if they have a setup and a platform that you're offering, and just how much quicker they can excel, and and it's about growing the game, right?
Yeah.
Like the talent right now at international football is like just excelling, like it's going through the roof. But with this next generation, if they can be a part of a proper pathway, how much we're going to grow this game. Like, we're just going to keep selling out stadiums, and that's essentially what we want to do. I'd hate to see this game die off.
Oh, it's so hard to see. And it's like, I had a parent come to me about 2.5 years ago, and I seen this young girl, and she was 10 at the time. And I could see she was probably one of the best girls I've seen. But tactically and physically, she struggles a bit.
Yeah.
And I said to the dad, look, I think I can help you. And he goes, oh, no, we're right. She's been selected by QAS and blah, blah. And this dad's just put up a brick wall. And I was so adamant, and I'm very intuitive. And I said, look, I'm going to have to grab hold of you and tell you who I am. So I don't like doing it, but I said, look, I've worked for the Premier League. I've worked for Liverpool, Leicester City, PSG. I said, trust me, you need to listen to me.
Yep.
Trust me, you need to bring it in, and I'm going to show you something. So I showed them something, and I said, look, we've got this new programme we're starting called the Pro Player Pathway, and I need you to get your daughter on it with me. It doesn't affect the club football. It doesn't affect QAS and that. I said, but you need to follow this. He got told by about 6 people who said they knew me, and they didn't know me, but they just hear things and said that Ray's not a good guy, he's not here to help you. Story short, rolled 2.5 years on later. Thankfully, the dad listened to me. She went through the programme. She's now signed for Liverpool. For my eyes, she's going to go on and probably be the next Liverpool captain.
Yeah.
And you know, unfortunately, she's probably going to be the next England captain and not the Matildas, because without going into too much of it, the dad just felt like they weren't supported enough in Australia. And she's an Australian-born kid, but she's got access to British passport. And I'm like,
and
she
you
should
see,
be a Matilda.
that's what's so frustrating. I've heard several of these stories where people are tossing up between 2 different countries, and we've lost so much talent because of exactly this. We don't have these foundations.
Yeah.
But no, everything you're saying is bang on. Like, I have no argument there. There's such a lack of it, and we're still just trying to bridge the gap. And there's a reason why, also going back to your other point, there's a reason why a lot of us are going to Europe, because the gap is still so far, right?
Yeah.
We still don't have the professional standards, the financing, the level. Like, why aren't European players wanting to come and play in Australia?
Yeah.
Like, we're still so far apart. There's a reason why all of the Matildas are going and playing in the WSL, the NWSL, for Lyon, for all of these big clubs, Bayern Munich, because the level and the standards and the support and the pathway and what they offer compared to what Australia has on offer, it's chalk and cheese. So it's like it's an easy decision if you want to get to where you want.
I took this particular player back over a year ago to England, and they were very fortunate that mum and dad were moving to England for job and personal reasons. But I said, look, I can definitely help you and open up an opportunity. And they said, so if and when she signs for a team, like whether it be Liverpool or Man United, she had a few clubs looking at her, what's it going to cost us? And I went, nothing. It's free. And they're like, what? And they're like, we pay private academy $6,000 a year.
Yeah, it's
We're paying
crazy.
private coaching. We're paying QAS. Like, every time we go anywhere with QAS, it costs us $3,000. So we're up for like $15,000 a year. So we're not going to pay anything. So she's gone on to sign for Liverpool, and the mum and dad are like, Ray, we can't believe we're not paying anything. And I'm, why should you pay? Because that's the European thing. If you're good enough and you've invested a lot of time in your daughter or son's game, it should be free.
And before you know it, they'll be paying you to be there. See, another thing, you touched on the QS program, and it's hard to comment it, but what I will say is, when you get offered to come in one of these programs, you kind of lose the reason why you got brought in there. You lose yourself. You can't express yourself. You're a part of then, essentially, is the coaching playbook.
Yeah.
You start playing a certain way, and you get put into this box. So that is the one downfall you have with going into these academies through these pathways, is you lose everything you were to fit into their mold.
Yeah.
And you don't see like the Phil Fodens, they're not cookie cutter.
No.
They're just not.
No.
And they go and play for England because they can express themselves. They go and play for Chelsea or Man City and whatever it is because they can still express. They're not put in this mold.
Yeah.
And too many kids these days from a young age are all of a sudden in this robotic repetition of what the coach's philosophy is at the time, and it's just to fit a system.
Yeah.
And that's why we're just expected to fit into the system. And the longer you can listen and abide by those rules and laws, you'll stay in that system, but you will never develop.
No, we're not developing individuals.
Yeah.
And again, I say it from a background. I don't claim to know everything, but I think I know a lot more than most in the country. And I'm like, I've offered my services now. I'm in a position where I've said and I've reached out, I would happily help and advise FFA. I would help QAS. And I'm not here to sit and knock QAS and FFA. I get it, it's hard.
Yep.
The problem is the numbers are that huge. Now,
Yeah.
it's the biggest played sport in the country at like community-based level. I think it outdoes netball by 150,000 now.
Wow.
But I think that's the big problem. It's the success and how many people are playing it. But we need to start developing individuals
That's
and
right.
creativity. And it's funny, like people say, Ray, when you had like Harvey Barnes at Leicester, what were you doing with him? I said, we weren't reinventing the wheel. It was simple stuff. I'll tell you what we've done. We give them one objective for 6 months, and your one objective is every time the ball's coming into you, you've got to scan both shoulders, and you follow that objective for the next 6 months. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, when we coached them, we didn't coach them. We used to put them in small-sided games, and we had a deck of cards, and we used to shuffle the cards and go, right, pick a card. And the cards would be one-touch football for 3 minutes, go. That's what we're doing. There was no coaching.
I love simplicity.
And it was creativity, and it was just letting them go. And that's what Phil Foden done. It's what Trent done. Jude Bellingham was with my friend, a guy called Christian Speakman. He was at Birmingham City, with all due respect. Probably one of the best players on the planet's been developed at Birmingham City. And that's not a knock at Birmingham City.
Yeah.
But it was the project we worked on where we developed these 25 players. And every single player who was on the project, they've all played Premier League or La Liga. They've all won the Champions League and they've all won the Premier League. But I don't know anything, and it's like, trust me.
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy because anytime I've ever coached, and it's hard with kids, right? Because you want to make things fun, and people think you've got to have all these crazy cool drills, and that's when you'll be good. It doesn't matter what drill. You can have all the craziest drills in the world and things that are fancy, but the player will never excel without the basics.
No.
And I still to this day you can never do the basics enough. Something just like dribbling through some cones without touching them with both feet.
Yeah.
And these days what's sad is kids find that stuff boring.
Yeah.
And that's why we'll never get the Jude Bellinghams and the Phil Fodens, which is unfortunate. So I think you and I are on this planet Earth to try and to instill these foundations of what gets world-class players, and it's doing the simple things over and over again until it's clockwork.
Yeah.
And that's when you can express yourself as an individual on the world stage, because these things are like second nature. It's like muscle memory, and then you can do the fancy stuff and be creative. But it's about these foundations, and I like live and breathe them, and that's what I want to instill in this future baller workshop, because it's less about what's fancy. It's more about the simple things that it takes to become a really, really great player and not a good player.
That's exactly what we do with our program, the Pro Player Pathway. We do a match analysis, but long story short, we draw out 5 objectives, and the 5 objectives are scanning, short distribution, long distribution, looking into space, and we actually prioritise them 1 to 5, and we go, right, for the next 6 months, all we want you to do with mum and dad now is record how many times you don't scan and how many times you do scan. And it's simplistic. And people go, this program's rubbish. And it's like, trust me, follow it.
Yeah, exactly.
It works. It produced Jude Bellingham. It produced Phil Foden. It produced Harvey Barnes. It will work if you follow it. It produced Lauren James.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny you say that, because when I played in England, everyone used to say, who's the hardest player you've ever played against? And every single national team player that's around me says Lauren James.
I'm telling you now.
She's just so talented.
Funny story. We met Sam Kerr in the airport, and my youngest daughter's run up to see Sam Kerr. And she knew a little bit from soccer, and she's like, do you want to get a picture with my dad? And she's like, what? And she's like, my dad, he's a famous coach from England. And I'm like, Plum, shut up. And it was so funny. And I'm like, no, she wants to get a picture with you. So we got a picture with Sam, and she was lovely. But I always say to everyone, and I mean this with the utmost respect, I love all the female players, but
if you were to give me one choice to pick one female player and put it in a 1v1 against anyone, I would pick Lauren James.
She's world class.
See, for me, the biggest mistake England made in that
Yeah.
World Cup final against Spain is they dropped her. They
Yeah.
didn't start her. Because I know what happens, but for me, they cut the nose off to spite the face in that game. As soon as Lauren James come on, it was too late. It was 25 minutes to go.
Yep.
And Spain walked away with it again. But for me, Lauren James, and she's a product of the Triple P
Yeah.
in the Premier League.
She's different level, and you know what's scary? I don't even think she's reached her full potential.
No.
She's
No.
unreal.
And with her older brother, he was identified early on in the piece, so she's learnt all these teachings. What he was following was they used to do 4 objectives in the Premier League, and they still do. With my programme, the Pro Player Pathway, to give the Aussies a leg up, we do 5 objectives. So, very quick story about the girl we took back to Liverpool. I called Liverpool and I said, look, I've got a girl and you need to look at her. And they're like, look, we can't do that. And I said, no, look, she's moving back for personal reasons back to England. She's going to need a team. I know you're struggling against some of the bigger teams like Man United and attracting I said, I think you need to look at her. I told her a bit of a white lie and I said, she's 14. So they dropped it in the 16s.
Yeah.
She killed it.
Yeah.
But they went with a bit concerned about her height, whether she's going to have that troop. And I'm like, I'm a bit disappointed to hear that because that's something that I thought had gone out the English game. And they went, no, we just think, and then I said, well, I've told you a white lie. She's actually not 14. They're like, we knew she was 15. And I went, she's not 15, she's 12.
Wow.
And they've gone, what? And I'm like, she's 12. And like, she cut it up against the 16s.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just being able to create that opportunity and to get the kids there. And
That's fascinating. I love that story.
I went on a retreat about just under a year ago to Bali. And I thought...
I'm going to one next week.
I thought going to a retreat in Bali, it was going to be all like just laying down, relaxing, and it wasn't.
No.
And what I actually discovered, I went with an amazing lady called Kathy DeMarcos, and she's based in Sydney. And she taught me about my purpose. And she said, Ray, you don't realise, like, you live in such an imposter syndrome. She said, you are here for a bigger purpose on this universe, and you're here to help the boys and girls understand anything's possible with repetition. And you've got to get up and speak on stage, you've got to travel the world, and that's what I'm doing now. And it's like, that whole week in Bali changed me. And I was the only guy with 11 women, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But I grew up with a mum, 6 aunties, heaps of females, so I was used to being around women, but it was such an eye-opening week. But to come away with actually really fully understanding what my purpose is, and for you to sit there and say as well, like, we're here on this planet for a reason, I believe we are. And we're here to try and help and educate the families and the mums and dads and the players to...
Absolutely. I'm starting to realise now that I'm getting towards the back end of my career that I have been put on this earth for a reason. And it wasn't just to play professional football. Like, I'm starting to turn more into a leadership role, putting my arm around players, inspiring young females to be better and pushing the girls who already think they should be starting in the starting 11, you know, bringing them down a peg. So I'm definitely finding more purpose. But, you know, it's funny, I kind of wish I wasn't 32 because I would love to, and I really genuinely mean this, I would love to do your pathway program because I'm still obsessed with those basics. When you say to me, like, just work on this for 6 months, like, that excites me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not anywhere like, I just know that I've got way more potential and I just haven't unlocked it yet. And I don't like the phrase of like, you're running out of time, because I still feel great. And I've been unfortunate this last year and a half with injuries, but I'm still so obsessed with improvement at something like that would just like fire me up. Like when I used to go and do private training, they said, today we're just going to learn chipping into that box, and in a 3x3, you've got to bring the ball down. And if we did that for half an hour, that doesn't bore me.
No.
I'm obsessed with repetition. So like, I feel like you and I were meant to meet for some reason because I love the basics and I can't, I've never really met like someone who's preached them as much as you. So that excites me. And I'm glad that we've still got people like you that are trying to bring this game to, I guess, like just strip it back down to the basics, because what we're trying, it does, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to get too fancy too quick, and we're missing the purpose.
Let's play 4-3-3. Let's play out from the back, and we're talking to 8-year-old girls who can't even hit a 5-metre pass, and it's like teach them basics. So our programme, to join it, it's $50,000 for a minimum of 4 years, but we keep the players on for the longevity. That's if anyone's paying. We give away scholarships. We've given away full scholarships, like the girl who's at Liverpool now, we give her a full scholarship. Maya, who we spoke about before, she's on a scholarship with us. So we'll go in a room and we'll give away maybe 10 or 15 part scholarships. We might give away 1 or 2 full. So it just depends on where the players and the families are at. So we'll give you a full scholarship because I reckon, and it was really interesting. I'll tell you one more quick story. So I had a really sad story. I got a phone call from Liverpool Football Club from one of the coaches, and they've said, Ray, we've had a girl with us. She's been with us for 6 years, and the problem is that we've got to release her because, as you know, when they get into that senior, they can't take the whole squad of 16s in. They can only take maybe 2, maybe 3. And he said, we've had Amelie at the club for years, but unfortunately, we think she's going to go out of football. She's heartbroken. So Carla's called me and she's like, Ray, can you do anything? Because I think your programme would be perfect to give it a bit of an uplift. So I called up the mum and dad and I'm like, look, you don't know me. I know Carla's refit. I said, but we've got this programme. It's $50,000, but we'll give Amelie a scholarship. I said, because I don't want to see anyone go out of football. And if she's put 7, 8, 9 years of her work in, story short, we got her on the programme. We looked at her. I seen exactly straight away the one thing she wasn't doing in a game enough was scanning. We fixed scanning. Within 6 weeks, she decided not to give up football. She trialled at City, at Blackburn, a few other clubs. She chose Blackburn because she thought it was a better fit for many reasons. Family, she lives in St Helens, but also she got first team opportunity.
Playing time, yeah, crucial.
She then signs for Blackburn this year. She's then had her first England call-up. She was going to go out of football. And only because I've created this programme and I've looked at the fundamental basics, and I know for a fact Liverpool are looking at it now going, we need to make a U-turn. We've made a mess, we've missed something here. I'm so grateful that like Liverpool could reach out to me and say, can you help us? Because like they don't know what to do, because it must be hard on them as well.
For sure.
That you've got it. So look, how about we do you the deal? We'll do you the full scholarship. We'll get you on the programme. And even if it helps you in the latter end of your career, get 1% better, then maybe you can be one of our big advocates.
I'll squeeze it in between my season.
One of the big things is you'll get to see when I walk you through, and it's all in the book, which I'll give you a copy, but it's an add-on to what you currently do. Nothing else changes. It's more about recording data and knowing what to practice. And I'm a big believer in what you do at club and even at national level, that only makes up about 40% of what you need to do. The other 60% is going down the park and practicing certain things, but also understanding in your games what you should be looking to work on and get better at. And it's blew me away. Even going back to Europe, I speak to a lot of ex-colleagues and contacts at clubs. Even at Premier League level, they don't go to the level I go to with my programme. And we've had 21 players on the programme to date who've gone through it in its entirety, and all of them have signed pro scholarships. So we're at 100% strike rate at the moment, and I just want more people to have it. Hence why I wrote the book, so people can read it for the cost of like $50 or whatever it is for the book. They can read it and follow it and jump on the online programme. So yeah, I'd love to give you a full scholarship. You'll be our oldest player on the programme.
Do you know what? And you know, I actually love that, because I hope that this story reaches some people who are in a position that I am, because everyone would think from an outside perspective that I've made it and I've had this incredible career, yes. But I'm like I said, I still feel like I've got unlocked potential. I still don't believe, I can count on my hand how many games I think I've like had great games. You know, and people will be like, you're crazy, you played amazing today. I said, no, I didn't. It wasn't enough. And so I just think at my level, and even though I'm playing international football and playing at great clubs, I still want to get better. So hopefully there is elite level athletes out there and footballers that still don't think enough is enough and still want to go back to the basics and do more and get better.
And our biggest problem is as girls. Like, we can't get enough girls into football. Like, we struggle. We can't get girls to come to our events. Then we get a call a month later saying, Ray, you've just been to like New York or California, wherever you've been on your event, and we've missed it. And we try our hardest to get it out there, but that's one of the big things. And I think, if you could help us in any way to draw out more girls into the game, to pick up a copy of the book and read it, to actually say it as possible, it'd be a big help. And we'd love to help future ballers as well. Like, because it's intersects it all.
I was going to say, I mean, just talking today, it seems like we're on the same mission. We're doing two different things, but they intertwine. So, I'd love to promote that. And that's the thing, like, I don't just promote things I'm not passionate about. And I'm definitely very passionate about what you're doing. So
I'm seeing a female version of me sat across, but a lot younger than me. I'm 44. But we were meant to have another ad break, but we forgot to go to the ad break, and we just kept going. But we're going to finish up now. But a big thank you for joining us. I know not just our families and female players will love this, the male players are going to love it again. But what's on next for you for the next couple of months and 6 months ahead? What have you got on?
Yeah, so before, I did the Amazing Race Celebrity, which was pretty cool. So usually in football, you never get a window of opportunity to do something outside of football. So that was the first time I've ever put something above football. And, due to not going to the Olympics, picked up a calf tear right before I went into national team camp, unfortunately, luck is just not on my side. But through that, I realised, okay, Olympics isn't on. I went and got this operation, this cleanup that I desperately needed. And so now I'm in a rehab phase. Unfortunately, because of this operation, I'm not going to be able to take an overseas contract. Yeah. So I'll most likely stay in the league and keep trying to grow this league and promote this league. And then once I'm back on my feet, I'll definitely look to soar out of here and test myself at another level, because I feel like I'm going from strength to strength. And, it's hard when you say that when you're in a moment of injuries and rehabbing. But, every time I've had a setback, I get more and more fired up and realise that, no, I can get back in the green and gold. I can get another overseas contract, and I'm determined to do that. So I'm looking at the next 8 to 12 weeks before I can get back to playing football. I'll have a great season here and score a bunch of goals and hopefully get myself back in the national team. The goal for me, and it's important to voice it because it puts it in existence, is to be at that Asian Cup that's on home soil with the Matildas. So that is the goal, because I've missed out on the World Cup and I'm going to miss out on this Olympics. So I've got a bitter taste in my mouth, and I've just got this burning desire to get back in there. One thing I've noticed is I haven't lost the passion to be at the top through injury.
If I was to ask you quickly, your dream obviously used to play in that Asia Cup for the Matildas, but your dream maybe to have one last stint in Europe, would it be England, would it be Spain, would it be France, where would you go? If you could pick anywhere, what league would it be?
It's a tough question.
If any club was saying, we'll all sign Emily, which club and where would it be?
It's crazy because my whole entire career I've always thought about America. It's the one. Wow, it's the one US. It's the one you didn't mention. Okay. And I had opportunities that I didn't quite. It never quite felt like the right time. But the reason I say America and not European football, one, I've done a lot of European football, and that's been unbelievable. But there's something about the American League that I think really suits me. It's fast, it's attacking, it's physical, and they just have a different mentality over there. And I'm not saying European football doesn't have that. Yeah. It just means it's one challenge I haven't undertook yet. And I just like ticking boxes. I like being thrown in the deep end. It's one thing that I think suits my playing style. Not to say I've ruled out Europe, I definitely haven't. It's just on my radar.
Yeah. I lived in the US for just over 4 years, and I seen it. And I seen the women's game in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, and it was phenomenal. And so, okay, we'll do you the deal. So, Matildas, Asia Cup, and we'll get you the contract in the women's MLS.
That's it.
We'll get you on the pro player pathway.
Let's do it.
A big thank you, Emily, for joining us. And a big thank you from everyone who's listening at the Raymond Wood podcast. And we'll be back next week with our next episode. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood podcast. We're back with another episode. Now, over the next 12 months, you're going to notice on our podcasts, not only are we bringing current and existing famous people of the football world, but also people who are working towards becoming famous. Now, I've got one of our players from our programme, Jackson Booth. Hey Jackson, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good mate. Now, Jackson, for all of our listeners and followers, obviously they can see you've got your Football Queensland jersey on there, but can you tell everyone where you're from and what age you started playing football?
I'm from Yeppoon, which is about 30 minutes away from Rockhampton, and I've started playing football at the age of 5.
So you've pretty much played football your whole life up in Yeppoon?
Yep.
Yeah.
I started under 5s when I was in Townsville, and then I think in under 8s we moved down to Gladstone for a year, and then under 9s since I've been in Yeppoon.
So football experience up in Yeppoon, obviously I know Yeppoon really well. It's a beautiful place, lovely beaches, good food. From a football point of view, has it been really good for you to develop up there?
The CQ program has been probably the best.
Yeah.
Because we come down here and play against the Brisbane teams, get looked at, but could be a lot better.
Yeah, it's a lot harder, isn't it, for you guys when you're playing in the local competitions, because I'm familiar with places like Central Queensland, is that when you get to a certain level, you're not being challenged and you want to be challenged more. So obviously having that option to play for CQ and coming down to Brisbane every now and again has been good for you.
Yeah.
Now obviously we met through your mum and your mum's friends with one of our staff members, and we give you an invitation to have a look at our Pro Player Pathway programme. So You've been with us on the programme for how long now?
I think about just a couple, maybe 2 months or
2-3 months.
Yeah.
Now, when you come in, obviously, and you've seen the programme and you've done the interview with us and we took you through the scholarship and we actually offered you a scholarship to join us on the programme. When you first seen it, were you super excited, or what was your thoughts? What was your process?
Very excited. Yeah.
What was the one thing when we showcased the presentation to you and we done the pro player pathway and we showed you everything that's involved? What was maybe the one thing that you first seen and thought, this is going to be a game changer, or I'm really looking forward to working on that particular part?
The success rate. Like, I looked at the success rate and I was like...
So the testimonials and the different success stories, yeah. That's one of our biggest ones, is that we done a successful trial during COVID and coming out of COVID, and it was something that was really important to us to see if the programme would work. So obviously when you're seeing the successes, but also I remember showing you some of our best testimonials are players who've come from regional parts of Australia, whether it be in Victoria or Queensland or New South Wales. So that must have excited you to believe that it was possible. So is your dream and aspirations always been to play professional football?
Yeah.
And who's your favourite team?
Well, it's more like whatever jersey I got first when I was younger.
Yeah.
So like the first ever jersey I got was Barcelona, so that's just a team I've stuck with.
Yeah.
But then, like, in the Premier League, everyone's got to have a Premier League team.
Who's your Premier League team, Jackson?
Manchester United.
Manchester United. Everyone's laughing, seeing him smile, because he knows I'm a big Liverpool fan, but I don't mind a bit of Manchester United as well. They're not doing as good as Liverpool at the moment, so that's always good to see. So obviously, growing up in Australia, you've obviously watched the Premier League, you get to watch the Spanish and all the best leagues. Obviously, seeing all that as you grow up has obviously inspired you to want to play professional football.
Yeah.
Was there any point growing up over the past couple of years, coming from a place like Yeppoon, where you're actually thinking, it's probably not realistic to think I'm going to make it as a pro?
Sometimes, but then like there's even been times like maybe not professional, but like I knew that there was still a chance for me to like go somewhere, like to Brisbane or something.
And just to play at a higher level.
Yeah, but probably not professional.
And then obviously now that you've seen the pro player pathway, you're now on the programme and you're now working through it, you obviously have a different thought process now that you're actually seeing that it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you put the work in. Now, talk to us a little bit more. You've got your Football Queensland jersey and you're down to Brisbane for the next couple of days. Then you're off to Sydney on Monday. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on and what you're up to.
So pretty much there's 3 Queensland teams and we'll just be heading down to Sydney to verse all the other states around Australia. And then I think out of that there's a selection for the Joey's team, whether it's like under 20s or under 17s or...
So you're hopeful that maybe you can try and get a spot on the Joey's team? That's the plan?
Well, yeah, that's the plan. But like the main plan was just to... Like my main goal was just to make the Queensland team so I could get scholarships and stuff to be able to move down here.
Yeah.
Without spending a lot of money.
Without spending a lot of money. So since you've been on the programme and you're playing and representing for Queensland and you're trying to open up scholarship opportunities, you're trying to get Joey's representation, and we'll talk about it a little bit in a minute as well. Since you've been on the programme with us, we're fully aware that there's trials going on in January for you over in Europe. So your life is literally flipped upside down since you've come on the programme. It's exciting, eh?
Yeah, very.
It's really exciting. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the programme, and you've been on it for a couple of months now, and I think this is a good one for any of our listeners or mums and dads or boys and girls who are thinking about maybe finding out more information about the pro player pathway. So the first touch point when we got the pro player pathway and once you signed up was getting you your GPS tracker, getting your match analysis done. We'll talk a little bit about your match analysis first. So for everyone who's listening in and doesn't fully understand our programme, we've got 7 pillars to the programme. One of the pillars is match analysis. So can you talk for the boys and girls out there a little bit what happens in that process and explain it from your point of view? What is the match analysis? How is it done and how is it delivered to you?
So pretty much there was this dude, I think I got Bolton Wanderers. Bolton Wanderers like...
Coach
dude.
So
and,
you were there, Danny Clark?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
And he was just explaining to me like I was actually pretty impressed because I thought it'd just be a lot of negatives, but he was actually pointing out a lot of positives as well. Stuff that I need to keep doing.
So just to explain to all of our viewers, so with the match analysis, we actually get a recording of your game. So either one that your team's already recorded of you being in, or we actually provide you with a tripod and you put up your camera and you record it. So was your game already recorded, or?
My game was.
It was recorded from your team.
Yep.
And then it goes off for match analysis. You don't see any of this part, but it goes off to our analysts who are based in Portugal. Ironically, we were talking about Portugal this morning, saying you like watching Portugal. Once that's analysed, it then comes back to us. We then assign it to a coach. That coach then connects with you guys on a Zoom call.
Yep.
And then you spend an hour with Danny going through your match analysis. So you just said there, you touch on obviously things that you need to get better at, but also there was a lot of things that Danny said to you that you were doing really good in your game as well.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of one or two of the things that he said you were doing really well in your game?
Oh, like I was creating space and then giving that really long ball over the top straight to the winger's feet or something like that. And he said I need to keep, and also defensively my scanning's really well.
Yeah.
But the one thing he said that I need to improve on is scanning when I'm in the attack. So when I'm getting the ball.
Yeah, when you're getting the ball.
Yeah.
And then once that's recorded, you've done the Zoom call with Danny, it then draws out a set of objectives. So there's 5 objectives that we identify in every player's match analysis. We then identify which one's the major area of concern that we've got to attack straight away. And then we label them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we go all the way through. So just for our listeners, what was the first objective that got identified that you needed to work on?
For me, it was scanning.
It was scanning. So even though you got some really good comments from Danny saying that when you do scan, it's good, but obviously what we've identified in the match analysis is you're not scanning enough.
Yeah.
So when you do scan, it's fantastic, but you just weren't consistent, and that's the beauty of this program. So for all of our listeners and people watching and listening in, we actually identify how many times in a game Jackson's actually scanned and when he's had an opportunity to scan when the ball's coming into him. So obviously your scanning would have been way, way down. So just to explain it to all of our listeners now, so we've got scanning as your first objective. It goes into our portal and the app. It then feeds that back to you via the portal, and then you've got to input your scores every time you play in a game. So can you explain how you do that, and is it, if you can talk about successful and unsuccessful for our listeners?
So for the first couple games, I'd struggled a little bit especially because we were going through some difficult teams as well. So I was like focusing on just trying to play the game. I wasn't really focusing on my scanning.
Yeah.
So I didn't really do that well. But then it just started happening, and every time I put the tracker on, it's like it just reminds me to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing it, and then I got 2 in a row, and then I got just under again in my another game, and then in the third one I ended up completing it.
So what percentage is it you've got to get to? So from successful and unsuccessful, how many successful have you got to get?
So I needed to get 85% successful.
And you achieved that within a couple of games. You got